What do you guys think this week upcoming? I tell you what, you got the election, you got the Fed decision. Um, I feel like there's a vibe in the world right now. I mean, even just going to the grocery store or driving. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I feel like tensions are really, really high lately.
Really? I
Mhm.
didn't notice.
Kind of makes me anxious.
No, I just noticed the other day. I was just kind of, going around, and I noticed people are just a different mood. And look, I get it, but at the same time, I'm not a believer in changing my mood for what's around me. I'm in the mood for what I can control. And I think, it's just a vibe. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but I don't know if it's in the gym or it's at the store. People driving like more like assholes than normal. I mean, I've seen more accidents than usual, but
How many of them
it's
have you caused?
no, I don't know. That's a good question.
Driving that big old tank of yours.
Yeah. Hey,
That cinder block wall wasn't there yesterday. Yeah, fuck it, right through.
yeah, I know. It's just kind of nuts, but you guys are voting on Tuesday, I hope.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're
Yep.
not mailing it in.
But
Yeah, I don't know about that.
but but I
Early
but
trip
Will,
in.
I have to. I lost my ID, so that's the only way for me to vote.
Oh, but in California, you don't need an ID to do
That's right.
anything, do you?
That's right.
In fact, if
Yeah,
you don't have an ID, they'll help you buy a house.
I never understood that. I mean, you can't even go to the bar, most bars, without showing your ID, right? You can't get anything. You can't even drive without an ID, a particular driver's license. You can't
Yeah.
fly. You can't, you pretty much can't do a lot without an ID. I mean, even go to the gym. I mean, our gym, right? You have to scan,
Yep.
and your face pops up, right? So,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Yep.
no. I mean, that's when you sign up, they take a photo of you. Yeah, so when you
Yep.
scan your membership card, your face shows up. So I don't get that, but that's another issue. I don't know. That's nonsense that we should abolish, but I don't think that's the purpose of this particular podcast. But I find it interesting.
I'm actually kind of depressed. I don't get asked for an ID anymore when I go to a bar. It kind of hurts me. Like, come on, asshole, card me. Like, just you're not even gonna pretend. No, all right, screw you. I'm going home.
Make me feel something. Make me feel some youth here.
Yeah, something besides dejection and anger.
Yeah. Hey, I have the opposite problem. I looked old from a young age. I still look old. So
Yeah, you look 12, dude. All right, Mister
yeah, I
No
don't know.
Wrinkles.
I heard Vin.
Hey,
I heard that you built the hospital you were born in.
take Boss Baby to another level. Hey, men out there, I suggest good skincare. I'm just saying, my lady, shout out to her, has making sure keeping me responsible, keeping me in check to make sure my skincare is good. But it is a difference though. I mean, you do feel good. You wake up, you have a routine, and I think that's definitely something that we've spoken a lot about, which is having a routine. That's something
Yep.
that can address mental health. I mean, it sounds so. I'm not saying small, but it's the small things that build up and that make wins, right? So it's
Yep.
wake up, just get up, make your bed, shower, do some skincare, grab a cup of coffee, meditate, whatever it is, do something, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the biggest things I know I've learned from Brian and sorts. I mean, I always had a routine, but it was more just like straight to work. And I guess throwing a little bit of personal self care does not hurt either.
Yeah, it's never a bad thing to look good. As the great George St. Pierre said, if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you do good. And then he went and punched somebody in the face. But
Maybe
look,
that can be part of our morning routine as well.
yeah, that'll be the unspoken fourth step, a face
Yeah.
punch. Although I love that meme with Bruce Lee where it says, like, he studied philosophy and all that, and by the end of the day, determined that punching somebody in the face is still the best course of action.
Oh my God.
But no, you're right, man. Having a good routine helps because I know in a previous episode we talked about predictability in terms of friendships and why that predictability can be a good thing. Yeah, it might seem boring, but at least you can count on your friends to do certain things because you predict it. Well, having a predictable routine helps too because then you do feel good. And usually if you put part of that routine is, like you say, skincare, things that goes into looking good. The truth is, I mean, women do care what you look like. I mean, they don't put a premium on looks the way men do, for example, but they still do care. And I think some dudes, and we'll get into this in today's topic, but like they sort of relinquish all control to say, like, let's say like, oh, I'm short, or oh, I'm scrawny, or whatever. But it's like you got to still do what you can with what you have. Like, you guys remember that scene in Pumping Iron where Arnold's helping that like shorter dude pose?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
But he
yeah,
tells the guy, like, when little guys
Hold the
pose,
leg. No, you
exactly.
can't.
Yeah, right. But then look at the change.
Small.
Yeah. He's like, with little guys like you, But then look at the change, right? When the guy listened and he suddenly looked bigger than he was. You do what you can with what you have. That's just how it is. Unless you're one of those stewardesses like in China, where you want to get taller, you do that little bone stretching thing. We're stuck with our height. We're stuck with our body, and we just do the best we can with it. Like, there are a lot of short dudes out there. Like, I mean, look at like Jason Statham. That guy's like 5'6", 5'7", but dude,
Wait, really?
He's not tall. He's not a tall guy.
Damn.
yeah.
You wouldn't know it because he presents big. I mean, he doesn't try to be like The Rock in terms of his mass. He just has like that swimmer's physique. Well, actually, literally, because he is. I think he represented. He's a competitive diver, I think. Right.
Right.
Oh,
So
was he?
always.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Except he had hair back then, but other than that, like. But see, another
That's
thing.
what cost the gold. It's
And
the
see, yeah.
turbulence from the hair. That's why he shaved it.
But hey, I'll tell you what though. But look at him. A lot of guys complain like, "Oh, I'm bald," whatever. Look, The Rock, Jason Statham. They're Willie. You and I only know The Rock for having hair because we grew up during the Attitude Era. Terry Crews.
I mean, come on. Yeah.
There's like two Bruce Willises. There's Bruce Willis with hair, and there's Bruce Willis with no hair.
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart is another one. I don't think he ever had hair. But yeah,
I thought he was born bald. Just that way throughout his entire life.
But yeah, so
yeah,
I mean, you just got to own it.
Just do your best. Yeah, own it and do your best. I mean, we've spoken about it.
And that's the thing is, like, you got to actually believe it. You can't just be like faking it. Like a colleague of mine once said, she was giving advice for just men who are going on a first date, but maybe they're kind of insecure because, like, maybe they're not as rich as they want to be, but let's say like they take their girl to a restaurant that they like. And she says, just own it. Just be like, isn't this place great? It could be like in the ghetto, but maybe they make really good pupusas or whatever. Just own it. Just be like, I really like it here. Don't be like, I hope you like it and all that. Don't be squeamish. And I'm like, you know what? There is something to that because you're being bold. You're being unapologetically you. And I think that gives you that sort of locus of control, the internal locus of control that a lot of men lack. Well, a lot of people lack, like, especially right now, election year. So you relinquish control to like everything outside of you, and that's not healthy.
Well, especially men. I mean, look,
I've never seen a restaurant that makes good pupusas that was not in the ghetto.
Damn right.
It's like with all that place by Oxy that it wasn't Troy's, it was a Mexican joint.
Yeah.
Every car that drove by, you thought was going to stick an Uzi out the window and spray the place. But damn, that food was good.
Well, it's like
totally worth the
right. I mean, it's like dim sum or pho, right? I mean, we all here love dim sum or pho, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can go like the fanciest places for dim sum, let's say, or pho.
Yeah.
It just doesn't taste as good as the hole in the wall Vietnamese shop. And look, not like it doesn't have to be like dirty hole in the wall. I mean, there's some good family owned small Vietnamese shops or dim sum. If you walk in, it's not in like, Chinatown. You walk in, it's not a giant banquet room. They're not yelling at each other. That's not legit. Like, that's legit dim sum. Everywhere else, if it's like, oh, we're a Michelin star and we have various fancy term. I'm going, just eat my ass. Like, fuck you. Like, I don't want that.
Was that place the first time Brian ever took me to pho as a joint? I think it was 58. The north end of LA Chinatown by the corner where all the homeless people piss on the one homeless guy. I think they had a C in the window from the health department. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna fucking die here. Yeah. Some of the best food I've ever had.
No, exactly. Yeah, and you know what? It's another case of them owning it, right? They know what they do best, and that's what they're doing. So that's brilliant. And this message can't be portrayed, or we can't amplify this enough. And I know we're going to be attacking anxiety today, which it's very timely. last episode we touched depression. This time we're going to attack anxiety, and and in the future we'll talk more and more about it. But definitely now the timely is good, and we referenced an article from the Wall Street Journal just recently about how men are really falling behind more than ever before, which is a sad thing to see. And then, ironically, after our AI sex bot, rant in our second episode, the University of Sydney came out with a very extensive study confirming that the AI sex bot industry is just starting, which scares the hell out of us because I know that's something we're trying to stop because men need to be men and get their head out of their asses or a bot's ass and start being men.
No kid shaming.
So are we going to be doing? Are we going to be doing a follow up to that episode? So it'll be like Abolishing Nonsense 2, Judgment Day.
No, we might have to, and I want to invite that that professor, Dr. Raphael Carrillo, whatever. I mean, he looks like he uses sex bots. I mean,
he's really going to come on the show now.
Yeah,
no, I really hope he comes on the show. What? If he has legit hard statistics and a good
I don't think his stats are the only thing hard with the sex bots.
Yeah, and a good study, that means he can defend himself and why the industry is just starting and why it's needed. So, if he has the kahunas to come on, we would love to have him come on. Just like with the BNPL guys with the Finex podcast. I'm just putting it out there.
Well,
we're making friends.
Yeah. That's how we form alliances, But
well, that is how men form alliances.
Although Willie, maybe you can reach out to Dr. Deborah So. I think she would be great on this show, just to show that we want to be diverse, And she's very smart, so it's just not just a DEI invite, But
and I thought we were the DEI invites.
We are literally DEI.
I don't know though, guys. I mean, depending on who you ask, Cubans and Asians got white privilege, so I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely, especially at Harvard.
I don't know about that, Whitey.
Oh yeah. Hey, look, it's DEI. I don't know. Whatever. It's a whole nother debate to get into, but it's a fascinating time with all that. I mean, you see more corporations are now scaling back DEI, and it's a shame from a standpoint of, look, I get it, right? I mean, I think DEI, I think it is an important subject, and I think there needs to not be bias, but I think as anything else that humans do, they took it way too far, right? It's like, yes, we DEI is important, but you also have to hire people that are qualified. So it's more of like, part of the reason why I like machine learning and artificial intelligence is if you develop it properly, you just insert data of like, okay, here are 3 people, here are the qualifications, this is what they've done, and who is the best. And you don't see color, you don't see face, you don't see any of that kind of stuff. It'll come out with the best, right? And that's kind of where I see an advantage there. But I just want to put it out there to listeners. It's like, we're not saying no to DEI. We're just saying, hey, yes, we agree. People are people. Everyone deserves equal treatment. It's just these programs sometimes go way too far, and they're hurting the companies because they're not hiring the right people that are qualified. So if 2 people are the same qualification, but one gets picked over the other because of some reason, which it does happen, then that's not fair, and that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. So let me just kind of add an interesting dilemma for you guys to ponder about exactly what you're talking about. So let's say a Fortune 500 company, let's say they promote a person of color to CEO. Okay. And you look at the resume and it's exactly, Vin, what you said. You're like, holy shit, this person has like every qualification. It's like, I could look at the resume and not look at their photo, and I would be like, I'm hiring that person. He or she is like exactly the candidate I want. And let's say it's celebrated initially, and the company puts out like maybe like a little bio thing on them, like, oh, they went to school here, they grew up here, and all this, right? And that sounds great to a guy like me, and I'm sure to you guys. But then here's a problem. And again, we're going to go over a lot of this in today's episode about this idea of externalizing things and this idea of like, yeah, that works for you, but not me, and all this. There are going to be individuals of that person's own diversity group, whether it's ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation. They're going to say, yeah, but they had it lucky or something like that. Or the worst is when they get called like a sellout or something like that. And it's like,
Yeah.
so suddenly their resilience, and I kind of covered this in my LA Sessions podcast, resilience is then seen as a bad thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that means here's a person who overcame very virtually identical things as with other people in their group, but they had extraordinary skills, extraordinary resilience. You know, like I look at, like, for example, kids in foster care that go through that and they succeed. Man, that takes extraordinary skill because you're already 2 steps behind. And I think that resilience should be applauded, and it should be out there as a story, right? Versus, well, the world's against you, society's against you. You have to acknowledge it. You have to live in it, soak in it. You know, it's like, or you overcome it. Vin, you covered that in a couple episodes back about, yeah, you soak in it for a day.
It pisses me off so much when people are just, mopey and, and just droopy, like, oh my God, the world's against me. I'm so sad and all this kind of shit. And, and then you see people amplify that,
Yes.
bullshit. And I love your last podcast with LA Sessions, right? Which is you talked about amplifying resilience. I mean, resilience should be rewarded. It should be highlighted. And if anything, it's inspiration. I mean, you remember movies where, used to feature that. What was the one with Will Smith, with him and his son?
Pursuit of Happiness.
Pursuit of Happiness, yeah. That was a fantastic movie. Right. And it's about resilience. He didn't let the world win, right? He didn't let all the pressure and the scars of his life consume him. He said, fuck it, I'm going for it and have something to live for. Not only for himself, but for his son. So no, I mean, absolutely. Sorry, I think my Apple Watch says my heart rate went up. By the way, Apple Ultra 2, fantastic Apple Watch. But no, I mean, but it just drives me insane when you see these people that are just, attacking people with resilience. And they always make some kind of excuse or have some kind of bullshit jab at them. Because instead of just celebrating, just saying, hey, wow, that's fantastic. That's great. And that's what drives me the most insane.
Well, it kind of reminds me of that funny comment, Will, that you made. I think it was like 2 or 3 episodes back when we were talking about Liver King. And then you made a comment about like how, while some people were saying, oh, he's on roids and all this, you're just like asking yourself, wow, I wish I made enough money to be able to buy all that stuff.
Yeah, it was 10 grand a month and supplements.
Yeah, where you're like, you know what? I'm gonna work on being able to have that much money to spend freely, And I was like,
I would never have the balls to actually shoot any of it in myself. I would just put it on the wall. Like people collect Picassos, I'll collect Tren. Just hang it on the wall as a reminder of my accomplishment.
Yeah, but I think that's the right approach, to be like, look at someone who's accomplished things, and there's nothing wrong with admiring that, because it's just another extension of, like, again, the Arnold example of how, like, he used to have pictures of like Reg Park up on his wall when he was like a kid because he wanted to aspire to look like that, and you have goals in life. You know what I mean? You guys remember when you were kids, right? Do you remember those book fairs? They'd have those scholastic book fairs. And like,
absolutely.
You went there with a 20
as a kid.
Oh, but I'm pretty sure every single one of us had those exotic car calendars, right? You remember, it had like the Lamborghini. Well, me and Will, your oldest, remember it had the Diablo, the Countach.
Right. Well, my generation was a Countach. The original.
The Ferrari Testarossa, the Lotus Esprit. But you're just like, one day I'm gonna get one of those. And I mean, I feel good that we're at that age now where this is the time that we were hoping when we were kids to own a nice car and all that. And I feel fortunate that I've been one of those guys that's like, I got the cars I wanted when I was a kid, and I got it out of my system. But now I just set higher goals. I'd be like, well, that's great to have that. Now I need now I need something in like the 600 horsepower range or something, you know. So yeah.
Oh, trust me, a Porsche Panamera, I tell you, that thing
Well,
flies.
Vin, in fairness though, at this point for you to level up, you need to get a fucking spaceship or something. So
I'll build it for you.
Please do.
you know,
Please do.
I mean, Vin's out there to conquer by land, sea, and air. So and soon space.
That's the goal. Watch out, Elon.
The good news
Rocket
is
lab, baby.
Oh God, yeah. The good news is I'm looking on Carfax here. There's a 17 used Testarossas for sale near me for the very reasonable price between 140 and 160K.
Oh, talk
That's
about
not
reasonable.
bad, actually.
But, yeah, okay. I don't have that in pennies in my couch cushions, but considering how
That's not
stupid
bad for a Ferrari. I mean, come on. I mean, that's
no, I was going to
that's
say
nothing for that.
in terms of dollars per stupid shit you can do, that's a steal.
Yeah. And by the way, to our listeners, I want to make it clear. I know it may sound like, 140, 160 is nothing. Listen, I came from nothing too, okay? Trust me. I used to eat government cheese with ketchup, so shut the hell up if you're already judging my feedback. I worked my way up to it, had ups and downs. I know what it's like, so fuck off, okay? Like, it's, so if you hear me say that, it's just because I've brought my way up to this point, and I never forget where I came from, but it is a steal.
You know, and I gotta
doesn't care what other people have to say. You sure have a lot to say about it.
and
I gotta because a lot of it's the people closest to me. You know that, Willie, Brian. Sometimes it's the people closest to you that say that, and it drives me fucking insane.
It's
what I always tell you, what's the response to "must be nice"? Like, yeah, it is nice.
It is
if
nice.
you work as hard as I did, you'd have twice as much.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that has to be stated for people, because after all, it is election time and all that. One thing that three of us have in common is our parents immigrated to this country, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, you talk
legally
about resilience
for you people,
right?
Certain demographics out there.
Yeah, they actually had to go through the whole process, and they didn't get support, to be honest with you, and had to figure it out.
Yeah, but the thing is, if people of Americans wanted to be honest about what hard work, what resilience looks like, they should observe working class immigrants, because they have to work hard to acclimate, to learn the language and all that. And so that should never, ever be minimized in any way. And that's why I hate it when that kind of resilience is minimized. And when they do well, it's this idea of like, oh, well, you forgot your roots or whatever. It's like, yeah, this is the US though. You have dual identities. That's why some have dual citizenship. They have, like, if you're an American, I mean, how many people, for example, they trace their lineage to multiple countries and all that, and that's fine. It's good. That's a good thing. And so it's like, I want to see immigrants who have that strong work ethic definitely get their praise, get their kudos, because in a lot of ways we're the products of that. And then our parents pass on certain things to us for better or worse. But with certain groups like ours, the stereotype is that there's a lot of hard work and innovation.
Yeah.
And I think it's just one of those things that I definitely want people to know. And if people ever wonder, for example, about the immigrant mentality and why certain of them, for example, may vote a certain way or work or do whatever, you got to start from the beginning and see how they had to start their life. And I think it might actually shock some people.
Yeah, and like you said, go ahead, Willie, please.
No, I was going to say, I don't think it's anything about forgetting your roots. I think the reason why so many immigrants who come here, again, legally the right way, etc., let's just take that as given. I think the reason why they work so goddamn hard is because they remember their roots. Yeah. And they don't want to go back to that.
No, they don't.
100%.
Exactly what's waiting for them if they give up.
Yeah, and by the way, just like Brian said before, and we've said before, resilience should be celebrated at all levels. It doesn't mean you have to be Elon or Warren Buffett or Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos, right? It's all the way down to, look, you have a roof over your head, you're taking care of your family, you're taking care of yourself. Like, that's resiliency, right? Despite everything. I mean, whether it's graduating high school or college or whatever, like, that all requires being resilient, especially in today's world. So for people out there to listen, we have a lot of friends that we know that we're very proud of. I mean, there's a lot of examples. We have a friend that started off a little bit rough, addicted to drugs and all that, but now that person's gotten out of it, right? Completely switched their lives. They're financially stable. They're working their asses off. They're saving a lot of money. and they're doing really well. That's resilient.
Mhm.
Or again, the immigrants that came here and worked, the blue collar jobs, but then but then started a small business and it's doing really well, right? And they're taking care of a family, kids are going to school. So it's all those things. Or to someone that is younger now, but is going through all the adversity. I mean, look, we're in a time where the economy is rough, right? The world is more divided than ever. The whole world, especially the United States, people are more brutal on one another. The violence, both words and physical, and the tensions and everything like that, and all sorts. So I think all that should be celebrated. And to stop, highlighting all the moping and soaking in the bullshit and everything like that. But speaking of, so I think one of
But
the
Vin, you
things
just don't understand.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I don't understand. You know what I can understand? Go back into your grandma's basement with your drawers on, and make
I grew
more.
up and never had a basement. I feel
Yeah,
cheated. That's
and
about
make some
white
more social
privilege.
media
Jesus.
comments. Oh yeah, you Californians in my basements because
Oh no, the house will collapse on top of you.
Yep,
That's what
pretty
happens when
much.
you live in an earthquake zone.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, I thought it was just the communism over there. But anyways, California. gotta
Wait,
gotta hide
so
from the commies.
so communism causes earthquakes now?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's caused by the despair of the proletariat.
If my
Absolutely.
parents were here, they would say yes. Communism causes earthquakes.
Yep. It
Hey, you
causes
know
is
what?
the root of many problems.
Hey, you know what? If math is racist, then communism can cause earthquakes.
Oh my
So,
god, yeah.
2 + 2 is 4, y'all.
math. The one
There's
thing
no
on this
5,
planet
there's no
that's
3, there's
the one
yeah.
math. The one thing on this planet that is literally universal is racist. Every country uses the same numbers, but that's
Yeah.
that's too exclusive. So yes.
Yeah. Arabic numerals, actually, for those keeping score. And we have an
Yeah.
Indian to thank for 0.
Yeah.
You know? Oh,
No,
well.
absolutely. Yeah. So speaking of all this, to our episode focus here. We had a great episode last time talking about depression, and we very much appreciate all the positive feedback on that. And we do have some questions for later in the episode about that episode. So some people sent questions in, Brian, particular for you, Mr. Expert. And so we'll get to that. But I think a good follow up to it is anxiety, right? In my opinion, those two go hand in hand in many ways. And what better time than to cover anxiety than now? Like I just mentioned before. I mean, we live in an era where there's just so much access to information, so connected than ever before. So it's just tsunami of information and content, right? So not only are people, struggling economically, right, continuously. And by the way, quick plug in on why people are struggling financially. Is this something for your knowledge, right? As you see all the Fed decisions and interest rates and what politicians are trying to pitch you, 90% of it's part of bullshit.
Probably.
Is when COVID hit, right? Inflation went up between 20 and 25% almost immediately, right? The bar went up 20 25%. But ever since then, the inflation went up continuously. What, 7 8%, right? For
Yeah, they brought it back down, but it's
but
going up less slowly, but it's still going up.
no,
It's
that's my
going up
point.
faster
So
than
like,
inflation.
okay, so that's my point. So it went up, went up, but then they started to quote unquote control it. So it went down a little bit, everything like that. But you still have to note everything that happened on top of that. Every interest rate month that's went by is added on top of that 20 to 25%. That's why everything is so much more expensive, everyone. Is that yes, they may bring down inflation down to 2 to 2.6%, their supposed target. But it's still on top of that 20 to 25% plus whatever the growth was thereafter of inflation. So
Yeah.
that's why everyone is struggling. And I just want to provide that knowledge because I know that captured a lot of attentions on Twitter or X, sorry, and stuff when we provide the insight. And this is why you need deflation. But to answer the question of many people, because for our other finance podcasts, I know this podcast, people see the crossover, is that's why things are still expensive. Is because our government and the Fed has not addressed that big spike in inflation. And just because they're bringing it down to target 2% doesn't mean it's getting cheaper. So that's why we unfortunately need a recession, because this is how economics works. But moving on. So that's a key anxiety factor, right? You go to the grocery store, you go anything to buy anything, it's expensive as hell. You have social pressures now, right? With everything that's going on. And then you have the election, right? Coming up here in a couple of days. And that's a whole nother factor. And then stemming off of that is just more division. So, with that being said, Brian, Mr. Expert in mental health, what are the types of anxiety that people deal with?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ones, but I'm going to focus primarily on the ones that a lot of men suffer from. And just to throw numbers out there, and this is hard to actually fully record because it requires people to actually have a diagnosis, but they say it's between 3 to 4% of Americans suffer from like anxiety. And again, I think that number is a little low, because the only way for you to really get that, other than self-reporting, which that's like what we said earlier about like the previous episode about, oh, I feel so depressed. Well, then, yeah, all of Dallas fans are depressed then, but like
And
with
Penn State
anxiety,
fans.
but like with anxiety, again, like I said, I think the numbers is a little low. But the most I would feel the most diagnosed one would be generalized anxiety disorder, and that's like this persistent, excessive worry without a specific cause, though. And so it's the ones where like you're not sure why you're so worried, you just are, So it's not like when it's test anxiety, for example, there's a specific source of your anxiety, but there's no specific cause. It's defined by like restlessness, fatigue, muscle tension, which is a big one, just difficulty focusing, and so as you can imagine, living with that can be really difficult day to day, because you just dread doing things like just going to work or even going out with your friends sometimes, just doing things that you like, will be fun, will be exciting, but there's this worry that you have. And the worry comes
Is there
from
a chemical? And just real quick, is there a chemical thing in your brain with anxiety? Just like, because I remember the last episode, depression, a big part of it just obviously plays a role with your chemical imbalances in your brain. But does anxiety play a role? Does
Absolutely.
chemicals play a role in anxiety as well? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the chemical imbalances are one of the causes for sure. And so it's there's definitely overlap, by the way, with depression. So what I'm about to tell you is
Okay.
there's going to be some familiarity, like neurotransmitters and hormones play a role, for example. So you remember last time we talked about norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine. Those still also play a role in the chemical imbalance with anxiety. But then you add to that GABA, other chemical imbalances that can cause this sort of like dread of the future. Like I think I mentioned maybe in the last episode that depression comes from the past and anxiety comes from the future. And it's that dread of the future that is sometimes caused by these chemical imbalances, among other things. Don't get me wrong, like other causes could be like just changes in your brain, in your amygdala. I mean, look, like we go through different experiences in life that it all affects us. Our environment, it is what it is. Genetics plays a role, and just environmental factors, which is appropriate because we're talking about that right now in a few days, with the election and all. And so that could play a role as well. So
yeah, how many? I mean, so when it comes to anxiety, right? I mean, I know, again, just like depression. Oh, I have anxiety, or oh, I'm anxious. But like, how does someone really know they have anxiety, right? I mean, it's thrown around a lot, right? And I know that, in my opinion, the 3 to 4% of Americans have anxiety. I think it's way, way, way low. And I think, in my opinion, everyone suffers some type of anxiety, even if it's small, right? Like a small type of anxiety. But how do you really know it's anxiety, or it's just your mind fucking with you, or is there any difference? Because I know a lot of our listeners are probably like, oh, I have anxiety, but do they have anxiety? Or someone says they don't have anxiety, but they actually may have anxiety. So how do you really kind of know that you are going through anxiety, whether it's small or a big one? I mean, I know a big one, you kind of fucking pass out and have an anxiety attack, which we'll talk about later. But how do you generally know?
Easy. Book a session with me.
Well, obviously, book a session.
But like yeah, I mean, you obviously go through it's kind of like for generalized anxiety, go through the symptomology that I kind of laid out there earlier, like persistent excessive worry without a specific cause, restlessness, fatigue, muscle tension, difficulty focusing, because there are certain things you got to rule out too, because it may be ADHD, for example, like the difficulty focusing and all that. That's a hallmark of ADHD. So see, because that's the thing that cracks me up this day and age with the internet. Everybody's suddenly an expert on self-diagnosis. Like if they get a
Oh
boo-boo,
yeah.
they go on like WebMD and they diagnose themselves. And then meanwhile, you got people like, like my niece that go to med school and everything. And it's like, yeah, what does she know? You know what I mean? So, yeah, so you got a lot of home doctors there, but then again, it could be other, other forms of anxiety too. Like there's panic disorder. That one is pretty bad in the sense that it's sudden and intense, and it happens pretty frequently. These panic attacks. So like, there's a feeling of just loss of control, and like there's just this feeling of impending doom, I guess. So that goes a little beyond just anxiety, because you're also dreading this panic attack that could happen, which panic attacks are a bit different, for example, than anxiety attacks because of the suddenness. Like you could just be standing in a movie theater line about to watch a movie you've been looking forward to, that suddenly it hits you. There was not necessarily a buildup, which can be very, very scary. People have social anxiety of just going out, and I'm sure sometimes, if you're a family member of somebody who has social anxiety, you might just think, well, you're just shy, or you're just, you see and meet new people, but that's actually what they dread. And so you kind of got to help them slowly, because they have the fear of social situations, fear of being judged, public speaking, things like that. Like strangely, like for example, certain celebrities, you would think like, why they literally perform, but no, but they actually have certain, they're very shy, they're very introverted, they just have a phobia. That's why sometimes they might look comfortable in front of the camera because they're playing another character in a way, which actually can help, I suppose. But when they're on the red carpet, they might look really, really out of place. They might look really, really like just the bright lights, all the people, and they're literally being judged. Like, what are you wearing? Oh my God. And if it's a shitty movie, you really get judged. See? So
Yeah, I mean, we talk about anxiety, right? I mean, imagine, when you're waiting for the results of the critics, you probably hold on your breath. That's probably a lot of anxiety there too. Yeah.
Or athletes, right?
Athletes for sure.
Right.
Athletes, entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people face it, right? I mean, I remember when I was playing ball, right? Football, and before every game, you always have some kind of nerve. I mean, I always identify as nerves, but I guess a part of it is anxiety too, right? You're kind of like, okay, you know, practice, we practice, we practice. Now it's game time, and after that first snap, it goes away. But leading into it, you're kind of like thinking so many scenarios, right? Or an entrepreneur, right? You're building a company. Talk about numerous anxieties, right? Numerous issues that can cause anxiety, right? I got to pay the bills. I got to make sure I close this deal. I got to make sure I do these laundry list of 100 things, because if it doesn't get done, right, it affects the business or affects the people I partner with or hire. You talk about anxiety there, or you're a parent, right, or you're anyone, or just an average worker, right? I mean, we said that in the last episode, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like the things that you have to go through, right? You got bills to pay and everything like that. In addition to, all the information you face today, going, well, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, whether it's health, right, or both physically and mentally, or there's this trend coming about this thing. I don't know. There's just so much going on. So I imagine those play a role in anxiety as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there like other causes that are a
Yeah.
factor too? I mean,
Yeah.
I imagine childhood trauma can build up. I mean,
Of course.
I mean, I don't know. The Sopranos is a good example, but seeing Tony fucking pass out all the time, and I mean, part of it's a terrible therapist, but I imagine childhood trauma plays a role, right?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, a lot of it could. Again, just there's different types of therapy, and for example, um, I said, generalized anxiety. There's no like specific cause of the anxiety. The opposite of that, in some ways, would be PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, because that is the response to a traumatic event that causes like flashbacks, nightmares, like severe anxiety, just uncontrollable thoughts, and so that is when there's a root cause. I mean, the two examples of that stand out the most are war veterans and
Mm.
sexual assault survivors, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think those are the ones that probably in the news media kind of like have a light shined on them the brightest, and rightfully so. But that is really, really difficult, having to relive that kind of thing. Like, you guys remember that scene in Rambo First Blood where at the end where he breaks down, and that was like some of Stallone's best acting ever, by the way.
Yeah.
But remember all those things that just like he's saying it just seems like not gibberish, but that's what's going through his head, talking about his buddy that got his legs blown off and all this stuff. But that was such a good depiction, I thought. And I would imagine a lot of war veterans would say, wow, that really, really described what I go through, and it could be, they live with that for the longest time, man. And it's rough, to close your eyes and that's what you see, uh, I mean, another form is agoraphobia, where you hear a little bit less of that, but that's like those people who are scared to go out in public not because of the social anxiety, like, the fear of like crowds and public spaces, but more of like this fear that you have nowhere to escape. Like, you're going to be trapped. Like, you're in a crowded space and you can't, if you got to leave, you can't. Or like it could be open spaces, but there's nowhere to go to, being trapped outside your home, things like that. So there's some people that have that fear as well, like, again, a little less prevalent, but it is there.
Right.
But now, just to go, answer more directly to your question about the causes and all that, uh, generally speaking, there's like five main core fears when it comes to anxiety. It's fear of abandonment, loss of identity, loss of meaning, loss of purpose, and fear of death. Now, as you can imagine, a lot of those kind of come along different times in a man's life. For example, like fear of abandonment. A lot of that happens when you're a child. It could happen later in life too. That's where some men, for example, if it's not anxiety, they may develop borderline personality disorder. And they just want to be abandoned, so they hold on to relationships a little too long, maybe. Loss of identity. I know we covered this maybe in I think it was the last episode where we talked about, like, let's say you're an entrepreneur right before COVID and then it wiped your business out, but you're not someone who has the skills to rebuild right away because you're kind of single-minded and that helped you in the past. Well, that loss of identity is just crippling, because other than the financial loss, now you're like, I don't even have a business anymore, right? And what do I do in the future? How do I pay the rent? Say, the loss of meaning. Loss of meaning is like, I gotta use the example of like those soldiers that came back from Vietnam. You come back to this country where people spit on you, call you baby killer, but you thought you were fighting for your country. You thought you were doing the patriotic thing, and then suddenly you're told it didn't mean anything. It was a pointless war, all this stuff, right? This loss of meaning is horrible, but that also affects, like, if, let's say you go through divorce, I mean, obviously some people go through depression, but then moving forward, the anxiety could come from this idea of like, well, who am I? Well, I've been married for like, let's say 20 years. I'm not like a young guy no more. How do I go out and meet women? I'm like older and all this, because you don't realize your strengths. You're thinking about like your meaning that you used to have, but that may not be your meaning in life now. The purpose, loss of purpose. Men go through this a lot. I mean, a lot of times they just end up buying a Corvette when they're 50, But it's like, you got to have a purpose in life. I mean, I think
Or a
I
chain
covered
when
that.
you're 30. Yeah.
you gotta wear that
Those
chain.
will be more reliable.
You gotta rock that chain on one of these future episodes. It gives people
I
a
might
reference.
have to. Yeah, just as a reminder of what not to do.
Let's do an episode on humility and
Yeah.
have that thing.
You gotta have one of your Rolexes there,
Yep.
and you gotta do it from inside your car, inside your
Yep.
tank.
Actually,
Yeah.
the three of us can do it as a instead of carpool karaoke, it'll be carpool podcast.
No, I gotta get a headband, but not like a one piece. Get the one that you can have the little clasp, and then string that through all of your Rolexes and put it on like a fucking a little headband in Karate Kid.
Oh God. No,
Um,
that's spot on though. Yeah.
and just real quick, the last thing I have to touch on because
Fear of
it's
death.
fear of death. Because
That's a big one. Yeah.
just so you guys know, the number of people don't know this, but the number of senior citizens that take their life by suicide is very, very high, and it's something that I hate seeing. I hate seeing that for anybody, but especially just with people who've lived this long life. And I'm someone who, my grandma was in her 80s when she passed, but man, I wanted to hold on to every ounce of life she had left just to spend with her, and but yeah, the fear of death is can be crippling in a lot of occasions. But I definitely wanted to kind of shine a light on that because I know like a lot of seniors, like they can't, that's just something that's inevitable. Like when you're a soldier, for example, there could be a fear of death, but there's also peacetime and all that, where probably nothing bad's going to happen. But when you get to a certain age, though, death is around the corner. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know it, especially if you live in a home like with seniors, and you see someone get carted out every week, right? A body
Yeah.
carted out, dude. I've seen it happen to people, and that just messes with their psyche a lot. And so I definitely want to encourage family members who, like I say, you're a grandson, a granddaughter, go visit grandma, go visit grandpappy. Like, let them know that you care, but do it because you want to do it, and just spend time with them. And so it takes their mind off that dread.
Is there what's it, so we just laid out many examples, and those are 5 key ones that I think are spot on, especially for everyone, but especially with men, right? Is there any statistics or from what you experience as a therapist, is there one that's more overwhelming than the other? Like, is there one that's like the most common one than some of the other ones?
I'm not sure that a study that I know of has been done into like which of those 5 fears is most prevalent. Um, but I have to imagine abandonment's got to be pretty high because there's less overlap, I think, because some things like loss of identity, meaning, and purpose, you can almost say if you suffer from one, you may suffer from the other two. So there might be overlap there, but in terms of just uniqueness, I think abandonment is one because there's so many ways to be abandoned. Maybe like parents abandoning their child, a relationship gone wrong, and a person, one of them might feel abandoned by the other, where maybe it's not traditional abandonment in that sense, but it's like it's still a split, and they're not in your life anymore. And I think maybe people who don't have a lot of, for example, people who do not have a tribe, which I know on this show we've definitely advocated for, they're going to feel a constant sense of abandonment, I think, because let's say they lose their job. They can look at that as an abandonment. But the reality is, even if they quit, they're going to look at it as that, because they might say, well, you made me quit, or you know what I mean? But they don't have anything to fall back on, so they're going to have that sense of abandonment. Whereas if they were someone who played the market really well and they knew, like, you know what, you're not paying me what I'm worth, I'm going to jump ship to these guys. So that's not abandonment. You're taking control of your life, and you're never going to feel abandoned because you took control. You got an out, and you've got a new identity in that sense. And so there is no loss of identity because you've already fabricated a new one. See, so yeah. So I would, again, just my opinion, I would say abandonment is high up there. But like, and some of it I would say is probably regional, because like fear of death, for example. Look, all things considered, the U.S. is relatively safe. I mean, it's not like we freaking live in Gaza or something, You know what I mean? Like, we're not like, and that's why I encourage people travel.
Or Venezuela.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? And it's relative, but I get it. If you grew up in a certain place and it's all you know, that's your baseline. But I would encourage people to travel, recalibrate that baseline, reset it. You know what I mean? And so you can see how the rest of the world lives, and it gives you new perspective. You know, you could see what like the what a dollar buys. You know,
No,
so
for
yeah,
sure. Is there so? I mean, I know we'll discuss anxiety attacks, but in addition to anxiety attacks, are there other ways that are obvious that men kind of deal with anxiety? And I imagine there are very bad ways, but let's lay it out. Like, are there ways in where they display that they have anxiety, and B, how can someone tell that they have anxiety, um, and can they help that person right go through the
yeah,
anxiety?
yeah. Now again, the average person probably would have a bit hard time diagnosing it because they don't know the disqualifiers and like all that stuff. But I would just say if you I would use the analogy of like in sports, and you guys know this. So like if you have a let's say you have your quarterback and he is like fucking shell shocked because he's been sacked so many times, right? In the 80s, I think this happened with Jim Everett on the LA Rams, where he would just go down from phantom sacks because he was sacked so many times, you know?
Oh wow,
Well,
Jesus!
yeah, like he would see the guy, he would just take a dive, and yeah, actually, if you guys want to see that on YouTube for listeners, you want to see a really funny example is he was on the Jim Rome show, and Jim Rome kept mocking him about it, and then like he almost beat him up on that show because
Oh wow,
Everett is a giant man, and Jim Rome is not, and it's just sometimes you bark at a wolf, he might be the beta wolf, but he's still a wolf. He's gonna bite,
yeah.
you know. But yeah, I would say like when you have a teammate that needs that psychological help because it's not physical, it's psychological. You probably jump in, right, and be like, you do things to help him build his confidence up, to make him feel safe because that's what he needs. He needs to feel safe. He's afraid he's gonna fail, and as a teammate, if he plays poorly, you guys as a team play poorly. And so you'd want to just get his confidence up, right? Get a sense of safety up. And sometimes that means helping him with his natural support system. So if he's getting sacked a lot, I mean, we have to admit that maybe his offensive line has something to do with that. It can't just be that he's holding on to the ball too long every time. Work on them too, to be like, dude, what the hell, man? You work on your protection. Your guy is getting murdered out there, help him in every way, shape, or form within his little environment there to be better, to do better. Because especially if you've seen him do well, I mean, if you know a guy who's just always been anxious and all that, well, that's different because that's his baseline as far as you know, and maybe that's just warrants a conversation. You might just find out he's just kind of neurotic or whatever. But like, you got to figure out like, well, what is it, And then I'd say, but then that's the example I gave is if that's like a phobia, there's a specific stressor. If it's generalized anxiety and there's no identified stressor, this guy is just always on edge. He's always just really fearful of like his own shadow. All you could really do, in my opinion, as a pal, just someone in his life, as a colleague, coworker, whatever, just don't be someone that don't be a stressor in his life. Just be casual. Just be real.
Oh,
Don't
so
force
don't
it.
slap him and yell him to get his shit together.
Yeah, don't pull a general
That's
pat.
exactly what it means, man.
Don't pull a general Patton. You can send him to war, but you can't slap him. Okay,
Got it.
but like no, I mean, but those people that suffer from that really should seek out therapy because they should seek the help of a professional. And sometimes they'll take medication. I'm not an opponent or a proponent of medication. If it works, it works for the individual. But I would say if you feel like you want to go in that direction, ask questions. Ask your psychiatrist about the benefits, the drawbacks. What are the side effects, and what can it do to help me? What are the alternatives, and all that. But also, it's okay to seek out other opinions too. Like I'm a big look, I grew up in a Buddhist household, okay? And so meditation is not hard for me to do. And I'm a big proponent of that. Of like just progressive muscle relaxation, just trying to, control my focus so that I can control what I focus on. Now, that does take discipline, though. Let's not kid ourselves, right? Like, it's not just, it's not like in the movies where you just sit there and you just say you just recite a mantra over and over and over. There's a mental component to it that takes a lot of discipline. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people would benefit more from that.
Now, I imagine this also, I mean, that's a great example with teammates, but I imagine this also reflects with colleagues or business partners or
100%.
relationships, right? Husband and wife, or girlfriend and boyfriend, or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. There's so much there. But I imagine that plays a role too with anxiety, helping one another, whether it's business or personal relationships.
Absolutely. And I know you mentioned before that we do have female listeners, right? I'm going to give
a lot, actually. Yeah,
that's great. That is great. Let me give a little tip, a little free tip, although it doesn't constitute therapeutic advice. Women, you have to know that your man, one of the things that he values in a woman is her ability to be encouraging. Okay. And so if you're with a man that's achieved at a high level, you have to understand that it's natural for him to go through some anxiety from time to time, because men that achieve at a high level have something in common. That is, they want to keep achieving at a higher level. Okay. But with that comes certain drawbacks, because they don't just do what's familiar. They go into the unknown sometimes. Right. So like entrepreneurs could open multiple businesses, and some of these businesses don't always have anything in common with the other business. So it's a new venture every time. And so sometimes that can be stressful. So for the ladies who are with such men of purpose, don't be a detriment to it. Don't just be there to like take all his money while he's out there achieving and gaining. Okay. You're okay when you're with him when he's thriving, but you got to be okay when he's struggling. But you got to be the one that jumps in and helps to encourage him. Now that doesn't mean you nag him. You play on the fact that he has to have purpose, as we've established. Right, one of the fears and anxieties, lack of purpose. Right, loss of purpose. Help him establish his purpose. Help him, remind him of what he was before, what he still is, and what he can be. And then he's going to succeed, and you're both going to thrive. Okay, because I know a lot of times in this day and age, like, we get it. Men are success objects, women are beauty objects, but it doesn't mean as a woman you just spend all the guy's money as he's struggling to like make even more wealth for all of you. Be part of the reason he does well. Lower his anxiety, and trust me, you're both going to thrive. And I 100% guarantee he's going to appreciate it. We've talked about it before, like powerful men, but then we look at the women with them, and it tends to be very instrumental. We've talked about Obama before, President Obama, Michelle Obama. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? The chemistry those two have together.
Wife.
Dude,
and a great person too. Yeah.
It is just, isn't that awesome when you see that?
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, people should take a cue from her, and that's why I don't like when some of these like men's rights groups, whatever, like attack her, they make fun of her. But I'm just like, dude, that's the woman you want.
Whoa.
Don't even get me started on that.
Time out. There are men's rights groups?
Well, we have rights?
Wait, there are fucking men's rights groups? What the hell is that?
Yes, Finn, welcome to 2004. We've missed you.
Wait, men's rights groups? You gotta be kidding me.
I know.
Wait. Please tell me that's just like a little fad thing.
It's a thing, man. If you want to... Go ahead, Willie.
Hold on. Wait. I have my phone. I'm going to Google this right now. Wait. Men's rights group, right? Groups?
Turn your VPN on. Just
men's rights groups.
No, I think, Brian, what you mentioned...
Shut the hell up. National Coalition for Men. National Fathers' Rights Movements. Men's Rights. What the fuck is this? This is legit?
So
Stop demonizing male sexuality? What?
Oh, that one's new to me.
What is this?
I was just gonna say, Brian.
Sorry, Willie.
One of the things that you said on one of the other episodes, like the women, if you help your man become a king, well, what does that make you?
Yeah.
By extension. So
a queen. Yeah,
exactly. But
You
now
tur-
I'd like to return to watching Vin have a mental meltdown.
Look,
Oh my god.
and for listeners out there, let me differentiate between a couple things because I don't want people to look too far into this. For example, there's like the woke left, and then there's like the more moderate left. There's the MAGA right, and there's like the traditional conservative right. There's differences. I want people to definitely know that there's degrees to this. So, for example, I find every time I crack a joke about men's rights groups, people always say to me like, "Oh, is it that online red pill community?" And I always got to correct them because no, it's not the red pill community; it's the black pill community. Because that's the thing where the red pill guys hate the black pill guys because all they do is complain, 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 but they don't really do anything about taking control in their life. Whereas like with the red pill community, it's just a bunch of men that achieve at a high level and they know their worth and they take control. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Now, do some of them get
Sorry,
some of
Brian,
them
keep going.
but do some of them kind of get a bad rap? Yeah. Do some of them kind of go a little overboard? Absolutely. And so, yeah, I just want to point that out.
Guys, just real quick, Brian.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a group called NOMAs, the National Organization for Men Against Sexism.
No, is that supposed to be like no mas? Like, are they? Well, no, it's a legitimate question. I don't fucking know this stuff.
Listen, you guys, this is see, the whole men's rights things cracks me up because are there things that men suffer from versus women? Yeah, and I would say like family court is one of them. I think it's you can't really deny like the all things being told, the mom typically gets custody of the kids. The dad's got to pay through the nose to see his own children. I think even the most staunch feminist has to agree to that. But if they concede that, then I'll definitely concede that we win in so many other areas, even like things that we didn't do anything to earn, like biological. It's harder, for example, for a woman, like for example, after she's had a kid, to lose weight. It's not as hard for a guy to lose weight. It's easier for us to open.
After we have a kid.
It's easier for us to open pickle jars than them.
That's what I don't get. What the fuck is men's rights? Listen, men's rights. Okay, you're telling me that you need to create a group to activate for activism for men who are, like you said, naturally physically superior from you know what I mean, like strength wise, right? We're stronger.
Yeah.
It's easier to lose weight, and men are, look at history, and now like we are generally more successful, right? And more, again, I'm not putting down women, I'm just saying this is just history, right? And women know this. And why the fuck do we need men's rights for? What is that?
Everyone needs
that?
to
I'm just like that. This is part of the reason why Wall Street Journal released a study saying men are living at home more and they're falling behind. Is because of this mindset. Men were victims. How the fuck are you a victim? Right?
The mental.
My blood pressure is going up, I think, according to my Apple Watch.
I think. Wait, is that why your watch is smoking right now? But
probably, yeah.
But
no, when I was yours.
Because personally, as a man, right? It's like you take pride in the fact that, look, I have a responsibility. We say this all the time. I've been a provider, a protector, and to scramble her organs, right? So like. Yeah. That's what your thing is, and you already have a step ahead, right? And I don't mean on the bad way towards women, right? So I don't know why these guys need men's rights other than get your shit together, figure it out, right? And just be a man, right? And that also means loving and respecting your woman, right? And all those things. And I'm just like flabbergasted that there are men's rights groups. So I'm losing words and thoughts here.
Right. I think a lot of times people self-identify in very destructive ways. And whether it's men's rights groups or people who lack purpose in life, so they have to create a purpose that's rooted in just being negative. Okay. Like we gave the example earlier, like I gave the example of like immigrants who work hard, right? And really, really, find success in this country that they maybe didn't have or couldn't get in the other country of origin. But they if you were to ask them, when all is said and done, when there's a father who's about to be a grandfather and he came here when he was like 30 and had to learn a different language, had to learn a different trade, had to, let's be real, put up with racism, and all that. But I guarantee you, if you ask such a person, how do you, about his identity and how he sees himself, he's probably going to first say, I worked really hard. You know what I mean? Like I really had to overcome a lot. He's not going to say, well, I'm defined by all the bad things that happened to me and all this. He's probably going to identify by the strategies and the resilience he showed to overcome those things and to get to be the winner in life that he is, and that's what I'm talking about. I want people to be able to say, okay, is everything perfect? Like for men, do I wish like divorce court or family court rather was a little more equal? Yes, but look at the shit I have just because of my chromosome makeup. You know what I mean? I have it pretty good in some ways. In the parts that I don't have it good, I have a strategy for that. I have a strategy because that's what I do. I solve problems. Okay. I want to see more of that. And if you have a tribe, you go to them, you say, hey Vin, man, I'm struggling in this area, man. What do you suggest? And you're gonna give me advice, right? Willie's gonna chime in and say, man, dude, I had
or not.
like you're gonna say like, dude, I had the same problem. This is what I did. We're like, cool, and we're gonna keep tabs on each other to make sure that we do all right, that we're all okay. We're not gonna be traumatized. We're not gonna go through all this anxiety. We're gonna do the things. We're gonna protect the quarterback. That's what I mean. And some people, they cannot do that because it's like, Willie, stop solving my problem. Stop mansplaining, because I need to give power to these problems because I need to justify why I'm in the situation I'm in. No one's going to openly say it like that, but it's like that movie where Mel Gibson can read people's minds. That's what it would be.
Women want.
Yeah. Right. Because some people, I hate to say it, but they're adverse to solutions. And I think a lot of the people, and they're probably going to get pissed at me for saying, but some of these people in like these rights groups like that, like the men's rights groups.
No, get pissed at me because I'm calling you out. And I want to have a debate with you on this podcast on why you're a moron.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you want to know the big one that people complain about? Those black pill guys is the one thing they complain about a lot is height. Because they're like, I'm short, I can't get women, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, dude, there are other ways you can do it. Again, like, you're defining yourself by your short stature, but not by the things you can do.
Napoleon was like 5'2".
You
know, 5'7", but
or whatever.
Very
That's short
at the time. But
like, yeah, I mean, but like, it's like they want to give restrictions to their strengths, but no, you have to have this limitless mentality. You got to believe that, all right, man, I'm 5 foot, like what? But you know what? At least I'm going to be a fresh looking 5 foot guy because I'm going to be wearing nice clothes. I'm going to work out so that I look good. I look like a Jason Statham or someone, right? I'm going to look like a Tobey Maguire. He's a short guy, but he's Tom Holland, right? They're short dudes, but they're put together. I mean, they look good, right?
And they're successful and they have great women with them. I mean,
yeah.
And that's it's just excuses they're making, right? It's like,
correct.
It's also hypocritical because we men also judge women by certain looks and certain things too. So for these men to have a men's right group about height is just so fucking idiotic. And on top of that, I mean, this thought just came to mind. A big part of the issues with society and all this, things that are generating anxiety and all the divide and the hate. I think a lot of it comes from people in general, men and women, but especially men plays a big part of it, is men without purpose. Right?
Yes.
It's like what you said, without purpose, because if you don't have purpose, your purpose is going to be in your grandma's basement with drawers on making nasty comments, or you're creating some stupid ass men's right group, or all these other things that you're going to do and just be hateful and just try to fill that void instead of doing something productive. So for all you men out there who are men's rights groups or your grandma's basement or, whatever the hell you're doing, have no purpose or whatever, find a purpose. And I know it's, it's harder to do than to say so. But I think the fact that, the first step is just to try something, I think is a great lesson that Brian has said before. Just try something and go from there. Because, again, we men need purpose, and there's no better purpose than the other. Is just figure that purpose. Now, don't be one of those fucking cult leaders either, and that kind of crap. Please don't do that. But again, that's just something that came across my mind as you were talking about this, Brian. It's just, I think, based on what's going on in the world now and everything, people just need some kind of purpose to fill the voids that they're facing right now. And that's why people are unhappy. They don't have that purpose, or they can't find a solution. And we're solutions oriented creatures, in my opinion, with men. So find a fucking solution, and that creates some dumbass men's right group.
Listen, for guys that are listening, that maybe what we're saying describes you. Look, we're not saying this just to mock and ridicule you. We're saying this to hopefully get you to see the error in your thinking and not set limitations, which you can do. Because listen, let's say you're 5'0". Guess what? If you achieve a lot and you're really successful, you're gonna look a lot taller. You can make more money. Listen, when you stand on your wallet, you'll be 6'5". Okay, so achieve more. Don't
It's true.
Yeah. I mean, look, like Jeff Bezos isn't a particularly tall dude or anything like that.
No, he's not.
Right? And so it's like everyone has like this archetype. Like I think the guy that a lot of these dudes kind of really put on a pedestal is like Andrew Tate, but he's like 6'4". He does well financially. He's a good-looking guy. He's athletic and all that. And so, yeah, I give him all the praise for that. I don't agree on everything the guy says, but in terms of like, if you're going to measure yourself against that, but you're like a guy who's overweight, he's like 5'2" or something like that. Yeah, you're always going to come up short in that sense, but you got to stop comparing yourself to this like this figure who's like, in some ways is kind of more like a mythical figure because he's not like, online personalities, there's more than meets the eye. You know what I mean?
It's a lot more than meets the eye.
People don't quite,
or maybe a lot less.
Or a lot less. Yeah, exactly. And like people shouldn't be. In fact, I hope people aren't listening to our podcast and saying like, "Oh, I want to do well, but I'm not going to have like a nice car like Vin." I'm not smart enough to design freaking rockets like Willie or whatever. I mean, do other things. There's shit you're good at. Learn it. Stop judging yourself by this metric you fabricated about other people.
No, I mean that's spot on.
It's funny you mentioned about the height. Like I know a lot of guys get hung up on that. I mean, I'm a whole towering 5'9", but I think I did tell Brian. Well, Brian was there when it happened. The one gal I dated that was 6'2" without heels, and I insisted she wear her stilettos every time we went out. She had to take her heels off so I could stand on the sidewalk to kiss her. But you can always try to be funny. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm shorter than you, but every guy's the same height on his back. It may or may not work out for you. It depends on how funny you are. It didn't work for me, but like you said, you can play to your strengths.
Right, and also on the flip side, right? Just because someone's bigger and taller doesn't mean they also are the greatest person or have don't have anxiety either, right? I mean, there are people that are, that physically have a good stature, but they're small on the inside. Right. So, and that's one thing. And that's why, we always preach, just be who you are and be the best version of yourself, because you don't know what someone else is going through. Right. You know what they're going through or what's in their mind, everything. And just because you admire them, great. But it doesn't mean they're the best example. You just got to look in the mirror yourself and figure out for yourself what you need to do. And I think that is a solution to some of the anxiety you face. Right. Is just you got to be comfortable with who you are and be proud of what you're doing or working towards, right? Set goals for yourself. And once you hit that goal, I definitely know that definitely resolves anxiety. I mean, look, for myself, I'm someone that has had been working hard and had some success over my young life, right? But, when I hit, a rough patch there, as Willie and you have experienced, and that's when I bought my chains and had an outlash, and all that kind of stuff. A lot of it was, I think anxiety. I don't know. I mean, at the time, I didn't believe in anxiety or depression. I thought it was all bullshit and weak-minded stuff, but I've turned around, and it's a real thing. But I think for a lot of people, that moment was because you kind of lack purpose, right? We hit a point where you've had some success, and you then look at yourself and kind of go, ah, shit, what is my purpose? You kind of lose track of it. And but once I regained that purpose, things changed, right? So for other people that see these other people that are really successful or whatnot, it doesn't mean they don't have it either. That they do have anxiety, they do face certain things, and so don't look at yourself as someone that is a piece of shit or whatnot. You're not, right? Just figure out for yourself what your purpose is, and you may not know it immediately, but you can work towards that. And it's like the best part of what you said last episode, Brian, was just do something, because you never know what you'll find a passion for, and that could become your purpose. In my very humble opinion, but I still just can't get over the fucking men's rights shit. But Brian, so what? So I kind of hinted at it for myself, but for a lot of men out there who, let's take a step back here. People who may not have had anxiety or just little bits of it, but not know it, could they develop anxiety down the road, right? It may
Absolutely.
not be their 20s or their 30s, but maybe to their 50s, and not till later. Is that something that could be down the road?
Absolutely. Because that's the thing about life, right? Like there's different chapters, you move on to have different experiences, and those different experiences help to shape who you are. But unfortunately, they also um, can add to potential disorders in your life that you go through. Like you experience things and then they become your past, and if we can say that could cause depression, then you could also say that things you anticipate in the future could produce anxiety for you presently. For example, anybody on this planet is one catastrophic event away from possibly suffering from PTSD, right? Like a lot of us just have never maybe been through something like that. We don't want it either, right? It's just like when you see somebody walking in a cast or something like that, or someone's in a wheelchair, you feel bad for them but you're like, man, I don't want that for myself. But that's like something that's very visible. Anxiety is under the surface; it's harder to see. But when you hear about it, nobody wants to go through it. Again, especially PTSD. And once again, I got to say, heart goes out to like sexual assault survivors, war veterans, and things like that. I couldn't even imagine how their day to day is, and I hope that they got the strength and the right supports to help them through life, and they can in recovery. But yeah, I mean, it absolutely can happen because, and again, it doesn't always have to be something that's catastrophic or bad. It could be, you guys ever have this happen where you achieve at a really high level, right? But then, and everyone's singing your praises, and everyone is like, wow, you're so awesome. Maybe it's like when you made your first million, I don't know, right? And you're like, I did it. But then sometimes that second year becomes the hardest year because then they start to have like imposter syndrome because maybe their success isn't the same, or maybe it's exactly the same, but they're like, I should be doing better. Right, I should be doing better, but I'm not. Now, there could be a number of reasons for that, right? Maybe the markets have changed, whatever the case may be, the circumstances have changed, but you can't help but think to yourself, dude, everybody was singing my praises last year, but right now I feel like I'm struggling. I've plateaued. I have not gotten any better. That could cause anxiety because now you're thinking, I made my first million, but I should be on my road to being a multimillionaire now, right? But that should statement is what's causing you so much anxiety because you're like you have this future projection of what you should be, but you haven't quite gotten there. But you're assuming that all conditions have to be the same, and that you got the hot hand last year, so you have it this year. It's like a basketball, right? The hot hand fallacy. Just because he made 3 shots in a row, he should make the fourth. No, that's not how it works, right? And so, yeah, I would say this idea of greatness can cause that anxiety because you set this this goal for yourself. And listen, we've talked about how it's great to set goals, but you got to be able to pivot. I know, Vin, you've talked about pivoting a lot before because that's a strategy that successful entrepreneurs need to have. But I would say just successful men just need to have in general in all walks of life. But then, yeah, it's that imposter syndrome. I think it's a big deal. Like another example I give that maybe a pop culture reference I think some people, you guys know, and I'm sure our listeners know. Season 1, Game of Thrones. You remember Robert Baratheon, one of my favorite characters of the whole show?
Yep.
He said, I'm just paraphrasing here. I'm going to butcher it, and I'm not as good an actor as Robert Addy, but he says, I was never more alive as when I was chasing the throne, and never more dead as when I got it. Remember?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because his purpose
It's so
changed.
true, though.
He was a guy who was always chasing, like, I got to be the greatest warrior. I got to be the greatest man that ever lived. And then suddenly he got it. He's got the crown. He's got the Iron Throne. And now he can't even fight because his guards have to protect him. That's why he says, like, the king can't lift his sword, fight in a tournament and all that. That's all he ever wanted, you know? And I think for a lot of guys that can happen, the imposter syndrome, where now he was like, what kind of a man am I? All I do is just, by his character's own admission is, I'm just whining and whoring myself into an early grave. And that's it. And I think that happens to a lot of, it happens to a lot of people. So I don't want people to just assume that people who on the outside look successful and like they just got all their ducks in a row, that they're not going through it too. I mean, anxiety is different for everybody. How they feel it is different, and we have to acknowledge that with respect.
No, I definitely agree with that. And look, I personally have experienced some of those matters, right? And also life happens. I think another key piece of that, not only pivoting, but to have patience, right? And I think a lot of times in today's world where everything is so fast paced, right? Because you can scroll on your phone, and you get 30-second videos and all that instant, and this instant gratification, right? We talked about that before. Everything is so instant. I think the problem with that is I think that's just amplifying people's anxiety because you expect things now, when in reality, things take time, patience, right? Success isn't overnight. Or your goals that you set forth doesn't happen overnight either. So I think a lot of the people listening, whether you're a man or a woman, is just you gotta really focus on the patience aspect of it as well. It's like whether you're an entrepreneur who made your first million, you want to make your multi-million, that's not going to happen tomorrow, right? It's going to take a little time for that. Or you're anyone, right? Or you just got promotion at your job. Okay, that's a great feeling. Now it's like, okay, what's next? But you gotta be patient. And I think that's one of the biggest diseases right now is people's lack of patience with humans. I call it disease because I see it every day, all day. Right? It's just people's just lack of patience and wanting for instant gratification. But if they just take a step back and take a deep breath and realize, wow, I've done a lot so far. Or wow, I'm almost there to that goal, or I'm a third of the way, or I'm halfway. Like, wow, I'm making progress. I think that's what people have to realize. Is setting goals also means making realistic tracking of where you've been, and just like you said, Brian, many times, take small wins towards that path. So I think for our listeners, please be patient. And look, have that pursuit of happiness, or have that endless drive and being a savage, but also be patient and know that you're not going to get there in a blink of an eye. So really key lesson there. And even when you go through things and you pivot, that's going to take time as well. I know from personal experience, I know people have been through that. Just be patient. And that's probably one of the biggest pet peeves I have now with people is when they bitch and moan and go, oh, they're moping around going this. And I'm like, well, you literally just made that change 6 months ago or a year ago, right? It's like, it's going to take a little time. Or they want this promotion now. I'm like, when'd you get that promotion? Right? And it's like, come on, be realistic with yourself.
Or they just want to come in and be hired as the boss.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then if you get that position, start setting up what's next, right? And pursue that. And like you said, Brian, people who accomplish that, I think, the imposter syndrome comes in when you don't set those goals next, or have expectations of, okay, multi-million now. It takes time. And I think that's probably one of the biggest solutions. And in my opinion, anxiety is just amplified because of all that. Now, another contribution is external factors. I feel like because you're so exposed to everything now, there's some external factors that are affecting people's anxiety or their moods or whatnot. Like we're talking about the election, right? You have the election coming up. And that's amplifying anxiety, or things are going on in the world, right? What's your opinion on that, guys? You two, like, what's your opinion on that with external factors? Because I hear it all the time, right? People are so anxious about the election and all that, and oftentimes I see them just get consumed by that, and it may distract it. I'm going, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why are you?
Let me just
Yes,
be
yeah. I mean, yes, it's a important issue and it's an important factor, but you have so much in your life you got to control and do
yeah,
instead
exactly.
of letting that take over 100% of your life. So,
That's
guys,
exactly what
what's
I
your
was getting at. Is like
yeah,
maybe Brian, you can help unignorance myself with regard to that. I know in 2016 there was like a huge, I don't know, this weird cultural tsunami of worry about the election. I think we're seeing that again now. Like I knew people who
I
were
mean,
literally
2020
in
was the same way
tears.
too, but the opposite
2020
side.
was the same way.
Oh, the world's going
Absolutely.
to end. MAGA was like the world's going to end, and now this time it's like the other side. It's like both
Like now,
sides are fucking
now
nuts.
it's good. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, okay, first of all, kudos to people who take civics so seriously that they're literally having mental and emotional breakdowns over an election. I, of course, mean that sarcastically. But I mean, Brian, you talk about external locus of control. Like people are worried about and a cultural and political event where it's literally millions upon millions of people whose actions they cannot control. What the actual fuck? Like
yeah.
you want to talk about things that you shouldn't let influence you. Like what the hell? Like is this a new phenomenon, or is this
Yeah.
something that we just buried in our psyche as a society before? Like what the hell is going on?
And also, quick bonus on top of that,
Quick
right?
bonus.
And these are the same fucking people, a lot of them, I'm not saying all of them, and where I
You
asked them,
don't
and
know.
by the way, you get taught this in school, how this shit works at the basics. And the most important people, right, are your local legislators, both at the state and the federal level, your congressman, your senator, right? Because they're the ones that actually write these bills up, right? The president can veto that kind of stuff, but people in Congress and the Senate are the ones that have the most influence in affecting you, right? Whatever district you're in, you need to go to that person. When I ask them, have you let your voice be heard? It's literally a fucking email. Or you can stop by on the way to get your Dunkin' Donuts coffee, right? Because,
Bro.
or Starbucks, where the hell it is.
There we
Stop
go.
in
Thank
for
you.
10 minutes and be like, hey, look, I'm really irritated about this issue. What are you doing about it? Right? It literally takes 10 minutes. So unless you're willing to spend 10, 15 minutes, maybe every quarter or every year, to voice your opinion or send a note to them, I don't want to fucking hear it. Honestly, to be quite frank with you, and you shouldn't be anxious because it's like, well, okay, you make one vote done. It's like, okay, look, every vote matters. I agree, and it's important that you vote. But if it's consuming you like that, okay, what can you do about it? Right? Have you voiced your opinion? Have you talked to your congressman or sent a note? And I tell this people all the time because I'm also in politics. Each office, if they get about 10 to 12 constituents setting them something about a certain issue, they all of a sudden pay attention. That's all it takes. Because then they see a trend going, they're going, okay, wait a minute, I got to address this. Because end of the day, they may think they have power, but you actually do. Because if you don't vote for them, they're fucking out. End of the story. So, anyways, I had to throw it in there because I think people gotta remind themselves how this system works. And Willie's right. In my opinion, what the whole fucking thing with this phenomenon. But sorry, Brian, just want to interject there. Brian, I think you're on mute.
Is it now? Is it good now?
There
Yeah.
you go. Come on, Brian. I know you have to let a quick fart out or
Damn it,
something,
Boomer.
but
I got it.
I'm the oldest guy on this podcast. I can say that.
I bought a new mic, and I'm still getting used to it. A couple things you guys both said about both external locus of control. I think it's important that a person, particularly like you're saying, a voter event should take control, but also sometimes people want to take control, they just don't know how. And you're literally telling people, on a smaller scale how to do it. Like the president, whoever is president, doesn't necessarily affect your quality of life like on a very micro level, but your congressman, congresswoman does, for example, local politics, your mayor and all that, city council, whatever. And yeah, you're right. People should take advantage of their voting power in that sense. And then they're going to feel especially when they see a positive result, they're gonna feel like, oh, okay, damn, I guess it does. I do have that power. I do have that control. So that's good. But in reference to this whole election and a lot of the stuff that's going on, this is why old people hate young people, because young people always assume that like whatever they're going through is like the first time it's ever happened in history.
Bingo.
We remember a time when it was Bush versus Gore, and I heard people saying the same thing about Bush as they're saying about Donald Trump, right? And I also hear them saying the same thing about Kamala Harris as they said about Al Gore. But then the generation before us would have been Richard Nixon, right? People were saying, "Oh, he's the worst," and all this stuff. So every generation, there's one. It just cycles, like we're not that unique. Somewhere in history, this has happened before, and people, and I know kids these days, well, actually, I don't want to say these days because then I'm falling into the trap too. Most generations, they hate history. They think it's boring and they hate U.S. history, but if you don't study it, you're doomed to repeat it, right? And that's what it is. I loved history as a kid. I wish.
Same here.
I mean, I loved reading on stuff because I learned from it, right? Because then that's how you learn about great people and that you emulate, right? And but no, I think people should learn more about that. And Willie, what you're saying is 100% true, man. Like when you're gonna let something like this affect your everyday level of just comfort, and you're gonna let someone you've never met affect you in such a way that you've got to go cry from your rooftop to anyone who will listen. You're gonna go and repost like you're some kind of martyr. I think there's a certain fascination people have with being like a martyr these days. Like instead of doing something about it, I want to be seen as a victim of whatever it is that I'm protesting about.
Shit, it's getting old, man.
Well, it's not even just victimhood. I think it's just dangerous. Well, it's dangerous, but I remember in 2016 and 2012 and 2008. It's funny. It seems to happen every 4 years. Like people who were displeased with the outcome were outright calling for revolution. Like the electoral college is bullshit. And I actually talked to one of my colleagues and like, first of all, you're Italian. So if you're going to talk about corrupt politics, you need to keep your mouth shut. Number one. Second of all, you're not a citizen. You don't get to vote. You literally don't have a horse in this race. What the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Why is it that everyone's mentality and everyone's reaction to adversity seems to either be throwing their hands up in the air, like you said, Brian, and like, I'm a victim. Oh my God. Or they go the other extreme and they become the world's most spineless, pathetic iteration of the Joker, and they just want to burn it all down. Like, honestly, one of the greatest things I ever learned as a kid was you don't have to lose with dignity. You just have to shut up and take it, because you can't win them all, right? And that applies to politics and to business and to life and everywhere else. Like, where the hell did people get the fucking gall to appoint themselves the arbitrators of what is and is not socially acceptable anymore? Like, it's just staggering to me. Is this a generation that just didn't get beaten? Is that why they turned out like this?
Well, about control beating, by the way, we're not saying abuse, control beating. Yeah. But on top of that, and I get it. I get both sides and what they're talking about, because it's more than just the figureheads, what they say and their base, right? Their followers that are spitting out, different things that are creating more division, right? When you fall into that, you're just making them more powerful, right? It's like anything, right? Sure. You're just empowering them, whether it's, the side of Trump or the side of Harris. If their follower base, especially the extreme sides, if you're so triggered by them or so, X, Y, and Z with them, you're just empowering them. You're actually just helping them create more division and having them win, instead of being confident in yourself, knowing that, okay, I put a vote in and I express my congressman that this is my opinion, and let that be, but check in with them, hold them accountable. Yeah. You've done the best you can, and you got to live your life, because all these external factors, all these fucking people in the grandma's basement, with the drawers on, setting this hate out, or even, unfortunately, the politicians that are portraying this hate, all they want to do is just succumb you into what you're feeling, and you're letting them win, and that's sad. I hate seeing that. You can't let them win. You are your own person, your own independent person that can make your own damn decisions. You have your own life to manage, and you can't let them control that. And it's just like what we say all the time about bad people, right? Or those people that like to manipulate, or those Debbie Downers, or that friend in your group that wants to drag the group down. You can't let them do that, right? You are the only person that can control your emotions and what your future is. So you got to do that. And if you're passionate about what's going on with the politics and everything like now, as you should be with policy and all that, then let your voice be heard. Because if you come to me bitching and moaning, right, but then I ask you, have you sent an email, or do you even know who your congressman is, and you tell me no, fuck off. Like literally, and I've done that. Unfortunately, I've done that. I say, okay, fuck off, because
Well, I
clearly,
don't think it's unfortunate at all. I think you should do more of it.
yeah, because clearly you're letting your emotions take over, and you're not expressing your opinions to that person that actually matters with policy, right? And it's sad, and I get it. Whoever is the president, or whoever is in the Senate, like they do have a figure. Like the president is a figurehead, but at the same time, that's why our founding fathers set up a structure that we did to keep them in check, because they can't get anything done without. And I know, and executive powers do have a limit, by the way. So I know for a fact it does have limits, and that's where Congress can step in, and that's where the Supreme Court steps in, and all that. But in any regard, people stick to the facts. Let your voice be heard. I just gave you advice on how to, and you should already fucking know how to do it. But reach out to your lawmaker, and then continue on with your life, and don't let other people's emotions and opinions dictate your feeling, because all you're going to do is have more anxiety, right? And all you're going to do is let your life be dictated in a terrible way, and you're letting that fucking person in the grandma's basement with the drawers on get fatter and happier.
Look, when it comes to, like Willie said, every 4 years there's an election. About half the country is going to be really miserable, and half the country is going to be happy to a certain degree. But like the half that's miserable, like you swear that based on their level of fear and dread, that it's the rapture or something, like
Oh, tell me we'd be that lucky.
like I remember 2016. People in my field generally vote a certain way. Cops vote a certain way. Military tends to vote a certain way. We all know that. I consider myself a little more free spirited. I go with whoever's got best ideas. I don't go by party like some people.
By the way, as everyone should. By the way,
but I remember a lot of my constituents, and some of them I might add are like mental health professionals, which kind of worries me because their coping skills were not great. They were just like, oh my God, this guy, he's got elected and he's going to destroy our country. And I just said, I told them, I'm like, this person's been president for 4 years. Okay. And whether you like him or not, any president, I mean, if we're being honest, can't get all of his ideas through in one term. It's impossible. Okay. They cannot do it.
Not even the greatest ones. Right.
Yeah.
So they haven't been able to.
And so I was like, you're fearing well, first of all, sometimes it's stuff that like the guy didn't even say, like it's the fake news works both ways. It's both candidates get accused of stuff.
There's stuff that I see that they said Harris said, but I'm like, she never said that. There's stuff that they said Trump said, but Trump never said it. Both of them are victims to this misinformation. And if anything, we're just, the naiveness of us is helping our adversaries overseas get happier because they're testing the waters.
100%, man. And yeah, I would just tell them, like, what are you actually scared of? Because everything you're describing is just short of an act of God. You know what I mean? And then 4 years later, those same people, I'm just like thinking to myself, like, yeah, your life wasn't actually that adversely affected. Your home life, family life, and all that. You go to work. I mean, there's the pandemic, but I mean, I don't think that's a fault of any one president or anything like that. You know what I mean? So that's completely different. But I just asked, like, for people who, when you believe that your life is going to be upside down because of one person, one individual, and at this point, I'm not even talking about the president. I'm talking about like someone in your life that has so much influence over you that what they do could completely turn your life upside down. You know, in some parts of the world, we call that an abusive relationship, and we say that's something you should get out of, right? Pimps and prostitutes, abusive spouses, we tell them, cut that out. Stop being so reliant on them, right? Like, you remember that scene in Casino, awesome movie, where Sharon Stone's character is married to De Niro, but no matter what, she always goes back to her first pimp, Lester Diamond. You know, played.
Oh yeah, yep.
And by the way, James Woods is so good at playing scumbags. I can't think of a better actor that plays a jerk than him. But
Really is.
but you remember how, like, no matter what, she always goes back to him, even though on paper she has a good life. She's got a guy that takes care of everything, buys her everything she wants. She has a beautiful daughter, lives in a nice house, goes back to this guy just to give him money, not to take money, but to give him money. It's the same kind of a thing. And so sometimes we're in these abusive relationships with ideas, thoughts, politicians, whatever, people that have influence over us. But why? It's okay to be like, you know what? I like this candidate, but I don't like what he or she became, and I'm gonna go with the other person now. We're seeing a lot of that with, like, I mean, look at Tulsi Gabbard, right? And some of them, like, was, I mean, but I always feel like people have to be able to have conversations, and if people switch because they think maybe there's a better idea, it doesn't make it right or wrong. It just means for them, they're just like, you know what, I examined my views, and yeah, I switched. You know, there's something wrong with that. You know, because the reverse.
And that's
could
when you know
happen.
you have a good friend group, by the way, and that's when you know you have a good group of a tribe,
I agree.
right? That can have different opinions, but it doesn't affect you negatively. You understand where they're coming from, and you respect it. I mean, our friend group, right? I mean, shout out to our friends, right? I mean, you know, our core group. You know, we have difference of opinion sometimes and all that, but we understand where they're coming from. It never gets personal, and we respect the opinion, and we move on because we know that we truly care about one another as a person. And we don't take it to the extreme. And that's when you know. And if you do have people that are not that way, get rid of them because they're already a fucking toxic piece of shit anyway. So you gotta get rid of, flush them. And there's and the crazy thing is those types of people are actually the minority, right?
Yeah.
People that are so extreme and are so divisive, regardless, without even understanding your point of view or anything, or your whatever, they're the far extremes on both sides. They're the loudest, but they're actually the smallest group. So the majority of us who are more reasonable, right, and all that, we need to continue to be strong together, and just tune that noise out. Because and the only reason why they have such a loud voice is because, honestly, digital and social media, right?
Yeah.
They have a platform that can reach millions and billions of people, but don't let them get to you. End their story.
With the little placard, the end is nigh.
Exactly, yeah. At the grocery stores, right? In the parking lot, like, hey, yeah.
I just find that the more successful, for example, that a man gets, the less credence he gives to the noise. You know what I mean? Like, whether it's people complaining about what they should or shouldn't have, or sometimes the most toxic place you can be is the comment section, right?
Yep.
Like, let's be real. Unless your job is to manage a social media account or something like that, you're not going to spend a lot of time there. You know why? You're too busy winning. You're too busy winning.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I mean,
you don't have time to be arguing, you know, with some 10-year-old kid in the boondocks, right? You don't have time for that. You don't have time to be debating with the guy in the basement, right? Because you're out there working on your purpose. You're out there like cultivating grit. You're out there planning for tomorrow. And that's what some people don't realize is the people you talk about in the middle, they're the ones that are out there, even if they're making minimum wage, but they're saying to themselves, like, remember that last episode we gave the example of, if you're just a young guy and you work at McDonald's because you don't have a path in life, that's fine. Do something, anything. But, you know,
yeah.
But maybe that guy is like, you know what, man, this fast food thing ain't so bad. I want to become a manager one day because I like working in the trenches, but I could do that, you know, but he owns it. You know, like the example I gave earlier, you even go to some hole in the wall, but you own it. You're like, this place is great, isn't it? You're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that. But that's fine. I'm not going to criticize a guy that is the manager of a restaurant, but he's so passionate about it, you know, because it could lead to other things, but hopefully it leads to happiness, right? But some people, they don't have that. They might just be like, I'm not going to go lower myself to working in fast food. I'm not going to do that. It's like what Willie says, just hire me as the boss. I've got ideas. But they,
Yeah.
but they have ideas the same way Fredo Corleone did in Godfather. You know what I mean?
Oh, Lord Fredo,
I'm smart. I've got ideas, and I was passed over. You know, no,
Yeah.
you're Fredo.
Success is earned.
Not everybody can be Michael Corleone. You know,
Yeah.
not
Success is definitely earned.
they can't even be Sonny Corleone.
No. Yeah, and that's just it. Be careful of what you wish for, right? I mean, people don't realize the burdens that a lot of people face. It may seem great, but I mean, you're right. I mean, it's just like, look, you know, when I went on a tirade against crypto when I was on Bloomberg, the amount of fucking hate comments and hate emails that came through, I didn't even realize them until someone mentioned it to me, and I go, "What?" They're like, "Oh, you're getting, you know, threats and all this kind of stuff." I'm going, "Good, fuck them." Right? Like, I got other shit to do. I know I think my opinions are right, and I'm sticking to it. And unless they
You
can
are
change
right.
my mind, yeah. I mean,
Look,
unless you can change my mind, fine. I mean, I'm always open to good dialogue. But if you come after me in a negative way and more personal attacks and all that, I don't have time for that.
You know,
But I'm
Vin,
happy, but I challenge them. I'm like, I want to have an open forum with you,
I want
right?
to. I got to jump in and add something to that because since the episode is about anxiety, and you know me, guys, I'm always going to be a big supporter and pusher of your guys' Finex podcast because it's that
Thank
kind
you.
of thing that keeps people from making bad decisions. That guess what it does? It causes anxiety because if you bought a lot of like Dogecoin or those meme coins and all that, and then you see what happened, but you gotta keep your position. You know what I mean? Well, you have no choice but to like live with anxiety now because you're always going to be looking at the ticker. You're like, oh my God, it went down. Bitcoin went down. Everything went down. You're going to be stuck in that situation where now, because let's be real, if you're someone who relied on those meme coins to try to get rich, you probably don't have other things in your life that are going to build wealth because if you're going with that route, come on, let's
Yep.
get real. It's not like you're buying into like the S&P 500 tried and
Yep.
true things. You know, you're trying to get rich. You have that lottery ticket mentality at that point. You know what I mean? Like this one $2 scratcher is going to make me a millionaire. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's like, then what, you know? But you have that anxiety of like,
If anything,
am I going to win?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, people are self-imposing anxiety,
Yes.
right? And that's one thing I've noticed too. You know, crypto, sports betting. You know, I mean, the amount of anxiety I see people like. I mean, just the other day, someone asked me like, "Hey, you play college football, right? So like, hey, do you watch it often?" I'm like, yeah, I watch it sometimes, but I really don't have time. It's usually in the background. Like, hey, what do you think of these teams? You think? And I'm going, I ain't getting involved in this. I'm out. Like that's not my thing. And like so no, and again, that's just back to the point of, you know, in today's world, there's so many anxiety trigger points because of that. The access you have to all these things, right? Like you just said. I mean, and it's really sad to see. And I hope people listening are waking up to the fact that yeah, a lot of anxiety is self-imposed. Um, and only you have the control, you know, to make those decisions to get rid of it. I mean, look, I like bringing it back to personal because I want to sound like a hypocrite. Look, I personally have, you know, discovered I do have some anxiety, and Brian's helped me through it. And I've discovered, yeah, a lot of it is self-imposed, and I have the control. And look, you know, I'm someone that's always been entrepreneur my whole life, and it's always been me, right? You know, I thank my mentors, but a lot of the grind has always been on my own. And thanks to Willie coming in now, you know, I have support. But like it's always, you know, when you're on the grind on your by your on your own, and but then when you touch success a little bit, you know, it's great and all. But there are some times in where you kind of forget that, you know, why am I doing this to myself, right? Why am I doing this, or why am I allowing this person to control my feelings, or why am I letting this situation happen when I can actually just go fuck this? I don't need this, right? So it's always a good reminder to also stop and look in the mirror and go, okay, where are the areas that I can eliminate that can ease my stress and my anxiety, right? Where can I, do that? And in a relationship, sometimes you have to cut some relationship off. Be like, no, this relationship, I try my best. I don't care if it's family or close friends or just acquaintances. Cut them off, right? It doesn't mean you can't still be friends or a family member or whatever, but you just got to cut up. Like, no, I'm not accepting this anymore. That's it. And or have a conversation with a current relationship that you're in that you love, but just be like, hey, look, let's cut this shit out because this is not good. It's toxic. So in addition to that, but leading into that, I'm sure you guys have thoughts. On top of that, any additional comments on that? What are some treatments that could be good for anxiety?
Yeah, I'll go over some strategies, but just I just want to piggyback off something you just said real quick, Vin, about like friends, colleagues, acquaintances, family members, and all that. I just want people to know that again, this goes with taking control, like having like what Willie was bringing up earlier with the internal locus of control. Sometimes it's okay to kind of on maybe like an annual basis or something, like reevaluate your inner circle and decide for yourself, well, who are the ones that are in the inner circle, who's on like the level out, and who's kind of just an acquaintance. You know what I mean? Because we have to be a little critical of who we really trust. I think that's important, especially if you're going to go into business, for example, right? I mean, a lot of people that can be cutthroat, but that helps you with your anxiety too, because sometimes having unrealistic expectations of people you think are your friends can cause anxiety because they're going to let you down, and now you're going to be afraid they're going to let you down some more. But the reality is, maybe that person is just like, wait, Brian? Oh, he's like a colleague of mine. We're not that good friends or nothing like that. But maybe, but my perception was different. Then I'd be like going through it. I'd be like, I can't believe they let me down. I can't believe they didn't follow through on something. I can't believe this. But they may just be like, he's just a guy. You know what I mean? But that's good for me to know, though, because it's disappointing for me to put that unrealistic expectation on them and get mad at them when they might just be like, yo, dude, we just hung out a couple times. It's like, I don't know you that well. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's good for people to reevaluate. And then, but on the other side too, like it helps you identify who your really good friends are, because you're like, they've always come through for me and all that. So that's actually a protective factor because of remember what I said about predictability? You're going to be like,
Yep.
man, I call Willie and Vin up. They always get back to me right away with exactly what I need. That predictability, there's no anxiety there. Whatever anxiety was there, boom, it's gone. See?
Yeah.
So I had to bring that up.
And on top of that, real quick too, in addition to the relationships, evaluate your daily routine, your life, right? It's like if you're always waking up to social media on your phone so quickly, maybe you stop that. Maybe you wake up, get up, make your bed, go shower, quick meditation, right? And have breakfast, whatever, and then open your phone, right? And work and all that, or just skip social media together till later and just get to work. Like, just evaluate. Right. I mean, just change your routine, or between that and maybe from that even to your work, right? Maybe I have, there's better methods that I can do with work. I should maybe make a better task list. I can use a better app to organize my schedule, or maybe I should give myself extra hour in between meetings, right? I know I had to do that. Sometimes it was just back to back, and I was like, fuck. So any areas, right? It's like performing an audit. I know I sound like a fucking finance bro now, but perform an audit. How can I be more efficient with my personal and professional life, routine wise, and then what you just said, Brian, an evaluation of my relationships. Yeah. And I think if people can routinely do that, again, it could be every year, it could be every quarter, every couple of months. I think that would help. And I think people, if you say, oh, maybe making your bed is so trivial, I'm like, fuck you. You'll be surprised how consistently when you do that, it's a quick win in the morning. It actually does matter. I know for me, when I get up, it's like I get up. It's like as soon as I hear the alarm, get the fuck up. Get up, make my bed. I'll go downstairs, walk outside, soak in the sun a little bit. If it's cold, maybe a couple minutes. If it's nice outside, 15 minutes. Go back in. Grab, definitely get my water. And then just start, getting some briefs to see, okay, what's my day like? Just something as simple as that. It doesn't be that comprehensive, but that gets you going, and it eases anxiety to start the day. Because as soon as you wake up and you just swarm yourself with like social media and like immediately with work and all that kind of stuff, anxiety just builds up. That, or you have a roommate that's a piece of shit, kick them out. Like whatever it is. But just just ease your life, man. Try or as much as you can, because then you can start making your life even better. But on top of that, what other treatments are there, Brian? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I know you said happy pills, but I'm not the biggest fan of pills. But
Well, yeah. I mean, and
but
listen,
it works for people. Go ahead.
I'm a big proponent of people taking control in their treatment, and so if they want to try medication, I'm not against or for it. I just encourage them, ask questions. Don't blindly take it because it was prescribed to you. You know what I mean? So like ask, what are the side effects? Like I said earlier, what are the positive benefits? Does it clash with any current medications you may be taking? If you're a recreational drug user, definitely ask that question. Or if you take really hardcore street drugs, definitely ask that question. But so yeah, and so that stuff, I'm not going to go into like the different medications I mentioned before. Like there's some overlap with antidepressants, for example, beta blockers and all that. Do your due diligence. Ask your doctor, ask your psychiatrist, whatever, right? But as far as like well-known treatments, cognitive behavioral therapy and cognitive restructuring is a popular kind of form of treatment, and that's more long-term. I'll go over long-term and short-term things, but like that could be an example of like it starts with a person having a negative thought pattern, like this negative belief of what they should or shouldn't be. So, it could be just them dreading going to work because nobody likes them or something like that. So to kind of restructure your thoughts, it would just be step one is it starts with a negative thought. So like that's the negative thought. And then you got to process, well, how does it make me feel? What are the feelings it invokes? And you got to be vivid and you got to be very detailed about this so you can identify and address it. And then you got to think about, okay, well, this belief, what is the evidence out there that supports it? Why do I think that everybody at work hates me or something? And then the opposite, you got to think, well, what's evidence to the contrary? What's out there that shows that, like, no, some people there treat me pretty good. Some days I feel pretty well accepted. You look for those exceptions, right? And then you think of, okay, I have that original thought, but what is an alternative thought that I have that can better allow me to address the problem? It could be something as simple as, well, some people at work make things difficult, but you know what? There's some people that are really, really cool. Maybe I should hang out with them more often and really focus on their opinions. And then you try it and you look at the result. So it's challenging your beliefs, but you have to be solution focused. You have to be willing to address the problem, which Vin is something I know you talk about a lot about. Focus on solutions, right? Don't just marinate in your problems. So you do this kind of restructuring. You identify the negative thought, the feelings it invokes, evidence supporting it, evidence to the contrary, an alternative thought, and then the result.
Right.
You're going to be able to, if you can execute that with discipline, you're going to be able to improve your anxiety over time because you're going to tackle the very thought, not the symptomology, the thought of it. Let's see, because sometimes people attack symptoms, but that doesn't get to the root of the problem. Okay. Another way of, because that's like a long-term kind of a way to do it. I want to cover like some short-term stuff because I think that's going to help people in the immediate. Because I think a lot of times in my therapy room, people are always going to come to me with an issue and they're going to be like, I need something that's going to help me right now. And that's fine. So people got to remember, if you suffer from anxiety, remember I talked earlier about like if it's generalized anxiety, it's this persistent, excessive worry without a specific cause, fatigue, muscle tension, restlessness. But what is that like on an extreme scale? What does that sound like? Sounds like a freaking heart attack, right? I mean, if I were to describe that without context, you'd probably be like, dude, go to the doctor, right? Well, that's what an anxiety attack feels like. For people who haven't seen it, if you want to know what that looks like, watch Iron Man 3. Robert Downey Jr. does such a good job throughout the movie of like showing what a quick anxiety attack looks like. And he's just such a phenomenal actor as it is. But I really applaud him for doing that, and the screenwriter for showing that people can be, no matter how strong they appear, they could have that under the surface, right? And if you want to tackle that in the immediate, it's about lowering your heart rate right away. And so there's the idea, it's called TIPP, temperature, intensity, pace, and pairing. So basically what it is like ice. You know how bartenders love ice? Hey, if you have a lot of anxiety, ice is your best friend. Get a whole cold bucket of ice water, dunk your face in it to lower your temperature. Put an ice pack on your neck when you're doing relaxation, you know, your vagus nerve. Get that down. You know, these are things you can be proactive about. You start to feel that tingling feeling. Try to do those things to immediately lower your heart rate. You know, the other would be like the intensity part. I don't need to tell you guys. You guys are in the gym every freaking day. Do
Oh
that.
yeah, I got
Do
the
that.
striations.
Oh my!
do more of that. See, look, this is something I hated that Joe Rogan got flamed for this during the pandemic, but he dared to suggest that maybe closing gyms was a bad idea, right? Like being in good shape is never out of style.
It was a bad
You
idea,
know,
in my opinion. Yeah.
you know, like evolution has taught us like you got to be strong, you got to be fit, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying you got to go out there and be like bodybuilding. I mean, even if you're old, but you go on the elliptical machine, dude, that's freaking great, right? Do something active, right? I mean, our American diet already sucks as it is, so I mean, just doing something active helps, right? Even if it's just walking, getting your steps in, that's great. That's wonderful. Like the pacing part is about your breaths. You take slow, controlled breaths. You know, like I know it sounds super easy. We've been breathing since day one, but it's you got to be mindful of it. Like you take the slow breath in, out. You got to control it. It's like the same idea as like, you know, when you guys work out, they say the mind muscle connection. Be mindful of your breaths in and out. Just control it. And then the last would be like the pairing part. It's the progressive muscle relaxation. Now, I'm not going to go into the deep dive on how to do that, you know, but I would definitely encourage people to look it up. It takes like, you know, a few minutes to be able to go through the whole cycle, but it really does help. I encourage people to do that before you go to sleep so that like, you know, sometimes you know how like the last thought on your mind before you go to bed can kind of mess up your sleep. You dream some really shitty dream. It's like freaking Nightmare on Elm Street in there, you know. But it's like, but if you get that relaxed state, you're gonna have. I've found just my personal experience. I want to say speaks for everybody. I tend to have more vivid dreams when I can get myself in that relaxed state, you know. So again, people progressive muscle relaxation. Look it up, try it. It really helps. So those are the four things in the immediate that anybody can do, you know, that people should have access to. And again, it much like with cognitive restructuring and things like that, it takes discipline. It's like hypnotizing someone. If the person being hypnotized is just like, this is stupid, it's not going to work, it ain't going to work because they already have it in their head. They're going to be resistant. But if you open yourself up to it, it's like meditation. It only works if you're into it. You know, and I brought up earlier, it comes real easy for me because I grew up in a Buddhist household. We meditated, we did all that kind of stuff, you know, and so I can't judge other people's adverse, you know, reactions to meditation by my metric because it was a lifestyle for me. My grandma and I bonded over that, you know. So those are things that I think our listeners should definitely consider if they're feeling any of the core fears of anxiety, you know, abandonment, loss of identity, meaning, purpose, fear of death, or even if like you're having anxiety walking into an exam, you know what I mean? It's okay to do some of these things just to kind of lower the temperature, so to speak. If you're about to go into an important meeting, right, and you suddenly got the shivers,
Or
and I
you
don't
finally
mean
got that girl that
yeah.
you really wanted to be with.
Now, I have to say though, just in
Hey,
reference,
storm. That's terrifying.
something,
You
Vin,
just didn't know you can go home and, you know, imagine what could have been.
Yeah.
Vin, something I have to differentiate though, and I don't think a lot of clinicians cover this very well. There's a difference between what I'm talking about, like that sudden anxiety, the raising of the heart, your muscle tension, all that. That's different than the what you described about before a big game, the nervousness. You know, I believe there was a movie. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was like one of these samurai movies where they did such a good depiction of exactly what you're talking about, where there's like that grizzled samurai. They're about to go into like this battle, but he hadn't fought for like decades. And he looks at his hands and they're shaking, and he says, "I haven't had the battle shakes for like for decades, and he's just like, oh, it feels good to have it again. That's totally different. You see? And so I just wanted to kind of bring that up.
See, now I want to watch that movie.
I'll find out what it was. It
was
was
47 Ronin with Keanu Reeves, would it?
No, it was actually like a Japanese studio film. Dang, I saw it at like, I think it was like the Egyptian or something. It was like one of those like it wasn't wide release. Yeah, it wasn't like a wide release, but it was funny.
Yeah, very few things that the Egyptian ever are.
Yeah, it was just interesting because he had like, his hands were shaking, but that's normal. Again, that's what George St. Pierre was describing before each fight. He'd get nervous. That's what Vin is describing before a game. That's different. I think that's different. Right. That's like this sort of competitiveness that people have, but it's your preparation meets reality kind of thing. That's different. I think that's different. So I just have to differentiate because one is a very good thing. It's a very realistic acknowledgement of the battle to come. That's completely different because it's not debilitating. It's not like it doesn't, like Vin going through that doesn't, he suddenly doesn't go like, oh, I can't lace up no, I can't do it, coach. Put me out, bench me. I can't do it. That's different. You know what I mean?
Bench me? Oh, fuck off.
Well, wait, I thought you said, wasn't it you that you don't do back-to-backs, Vin?
Oh, don't get me started. Oh, God.
Too soon?
Too soon, man. I mean, look, shout out to Embiid. I mean, I do disagree with the back-and-back stuff, but I thought he was right for holding that writer accountable because the sports journalist, I forgot what his name was. He can go fuck himself. No one likes him, by the way, in Philly. But he wrote criticism of Embiid. Okay, everyone's entitled, everyone's freedom of speech and all that. But he brought in, Embiid's son and I believe Deb brother into the mix. Like, he mentioned them, and to me, that is unacceptable. Like, that's where, regardless of what you think of Embiid, he's a great player. Regardless of what you think about his workload and all that, you don't bring family into that, right? And this is why I think this whole, why media has been such distrusted over the years. And that pissed me off. I'm like, look, there's a fine line between sports criticism and then dragging family in, and that's unacceptable. And that writer, you're lucky I haven't come after you on Twitter yet. I'm ready for it.
Again, I gotta say, like, using the basketball examples, I think, like, for example, for me, just observing the biggest case of anxiety when it came to professional play was probably Ben Simmons. Because
Ben Simmons,
scared to take shots, right? He gets paid a ton of money, but remember, you get paid a ton of money, it becomes a ton of expectations too.
Yeah, and anxiety kicks in, for sure.
And one kid that I worry about, but I think will be okay because of who his dad is Bronny James, because everybody wants that kid to fail, because they're saying, well, he doesn't belong in the league, it's nepotism. Yes, of course it's nepotism. I mean, let's just be honest about it. It is nepotism. However, let's say he goes to the LA Fitness and does a pickup game. He's probably going to kill 95% of the guys who play out there, right? Yep. And it's just that this was like his father's dream of being able to play at the same time with his son. It's just that when your dad is LeBron James, that's a lot of expectations. That's going to get projected on you because you could score 20 points. But your daddy's going to score 35, and they're going to be like, oh, he can't score as many as his dad. It's like, you know what I mean? And so I really hope that he has a good approach to managing that anxiety. I tend to think he does. Once again,
he will, yeah.
His father.
He has great parents. I mean, Savannah and LeBron are just great parents.
I think he will.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he will. And I think there's no shame in I know Charles Barkley has suggested he goes to the G League so he gets to play, not because he sucked, but because he's not going to get a play like a lot of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the G League is for. The G League to get repetition,
exactly
reps in, and then get experience.
Yeah, and I think that would be great because look, everyone's going to shut up if suddenly it turns out that LeBron retires, but then Bronny comes into his own and becomes like a really good point guard or something like that, or shooting guard. And so, people are going to forget it real quick. But I hope for that kid because, I mean, the kid had a heart attack already. Remember?
He literally collapsed on the
That come on, man. And again, that's why I worry about the anxiety because that's literally your heart You know what I mean? So I hope the best for that kid, man. I mean, I'm more of a Kobe fan than LeBron personally, but LeBron's one of the all-time greats, man, and he's a great
I love them
dad.
both. Yeah,
He's a great father. I hope. And hey, they've already played minutes together, so
yeah,
that's wonderful.
and that's the thing is like the moment we're having now together talking about this is what people should be having more of, right?
Absolutely.
And like you said, the three of us, each of us have a purpose, right? And I think that's a big reason why we're not really, criticizing that much or being Debbie Downer with someone. Like we're trying to encourage others. Um, and look, I've had criticisms during this episode about the men's rights groups, which is I can't fathom that. And all these crypto, idiots. But look, end of the day, I have my criticisms, but I do hope for the best for all of them, though. To be honest, right? It's like, look, I get it. Everyone goes through moments in life, and they're trying to find their purpose. And even though I disagree with you, I just hope that you find a purpose in your life and all that. But it's like with Bronny, right? I hope he has a great career. If anything, he should use that criticism as motivation and make his own path. And just don't be a Kendall Roy from Succession. Great show, by the way. Don't be a Kendall Roy, who completely succumbs to the pressure and all that.
But don't be a Connor either.
Yeah, don't be a Connor. Just give up and just and everything like that. But no, I mean, I think I really hope that this has helped a lot of people because I think everyone's going through some kind of anxiety, and it's not a competition who has it more or less. I think what we provide at Hope has been extremely helpful to help deal with anxiety. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. Everyone has a lot of pressures in their lives, but you do have control in how you can manage that anxiety, and just gotta take it, right? Take control. Now, before we have some final words, we do have a couple good questions from the last episode about depression.
Is one of those questions if you're Satoshi?
I am not Satoshi or Satoshi, what the hell you call his name. Just because I'm Asian doesn't mean I'm him. No, I'm Satoshi because my goal is to gain world dominance and make sure that all the governments bow down before me because I have all the money in the world.
We got man.
And someone's going to take this clip. And someone's going to take this clip and make it viral. You watch.
Next year, you gotta for Halloween. You gotta dress up as M. Bison from Street Fighter.
Oh God!
Oh, and you gotta make those Bison dollars from the Street Fighter movie with your picture on it.
I might. That sounds like a good plan. Actually, I might have to do that.
I'd use that currency over crypto any day of the week. The Vong dollar.
Same here. You can't go wrong with Vong. You can go long with Vong.
Oh my God.
Oh God. Yeah, but so what one of the real good questions I thought was, and I'm summing it up because there's actually multiple people ask about this. The theme was a lot of people went, okay, they're trying to deal with the depression. They're not sure if they have it or not, but they're asking like the physical effects because there are a lot of folks that were telling or DMing us right through social media that they're trying to pursue the vice that we've given them, and they are making some progress, but they just notice like just physically sometimes that they just feel just lethargic or they're just exhausted and they're just kind of like, what the hell, like why don't they feel better as they're going through these not only treatments but some of the vice they've gotten, whether it's from us or others. So like so they're asking like, is that an effect, and B, how can they do better? Like how can they make themselves feel better, the physical part of it.
So a couple things to address there. So negative effects, I'll start with that. People who go through depression, there's a lot of different things linked to it, whether it's like stomach problems. That's actually a very common one. People just have digestion problems, stomach aches, just pain in general, because it manifests in a somatic kind of a way. And so people like that, first of all, if you're feeling the mental part like of depression, but also the physical part, definitely, I'm a big fan of ruling certain things out. So if it's a medical issue, by all means, go to your primary medical provider, get that checked out. Make sure it's not actually an intestinal problem. I mean, hell, come on, man. Look what happened to Brock Lesnar, diverticulitis, If it could take that freaking man beast out for like 2 years, you know what I mean? Rule that out, because again, American diet freaking sucks. So it might be the food, but let's say it's brought on by depression. Yeah, it manifests in just like physical pain, hurt. Sometimes people get headaches and stuff like that, right? From the stress, like the stress headaches. I think those are the ones like on the side and stuff like that. So just kind of be mindful of that, but also see your medical provider to make sure that it's not something else. Or actually also make sure that you're getting good sleep, because if you're not getting restful sleep and you kind of twist and turn a lot, you're going to wake up all sore. And sometimes your neck, you guys ever have this happen? Your neck's in the wrong, is all weird when you sleep. So that like you get that headache from like the top of your head. It's like that. Just rule some of that out.
Joys of aging, you can hurt yourself from sleeping.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. And so, yeah. And isn't it funny when we were little, we were afraid to sleep because we thought Freddy would get us, but then now we're afraid that Father Time is just going to do a number. We feel like we wake up. We freaking wake up. We feel like Bret Hart had us in the sharpshooter for like 8 hours. Yeah.
See, now it's like Freddy or Jason. I wish you would. We're gonna have a blast. Oh yeah, come on, Freddy, come out. We'll have some fun. Let's dance.
When they inevitably remake Dream Warriors, I think they should cast Finn as one of the mental patients.
Godspeed.
Well, just real on an aside, the reason as men we don't fear Freddy and Jason anymore is because when you grow up, unlike when you're kids, you got other things that are worse, like alimony, child support. You know what I mean?
Responsibilities.
At least you have a chance against Jason, you know? So I'm just saying. But anyway,
you have a chance against Jason, just don't have sex, which most guys these days don't have to worry about putting forth any effort to do.
Harsh.
Damn. Damn.
Oh man. Okay. So the other thing was So
the answer is definitely yes. Physically, it plays a huge toll, and I imagine anxiety does too.
It both do, yes, for sure. And then the other part of that was so let's say you're making some inroads, you're doing things. Let's say you're forcing yourself to go to the gym, forcing yourself to stick to a schedule, do things that we talked about that could alleviate it. Well, here's a problem. You guys refresh my memory. Like, how long does it take for something to be a habit? Typically,
30 days, isn't it?
30 days, right? Something like that. And so just remember, because I talked about how it's like a chemical imbalance. You know, your neurotransmitters. That's why like the medication basically helps with your body not reabsorbing serotonin and all that, right? Well, the thing is, even the medication, the label will even tell you, I believe, that it might take like 2 weeks or more to actually feel any effect. And so that's your body literally, like, it takes a while for all of this to actually work. See? So it stands to reason that if you're starting to like go to the gym more, you're starting to maybe jog more, you're doing boxing, MMA, basketball, you're doing things to get your body more active. Your body is doing it, but it's being forced to do it. It hasn't become a habit yet. And so the chemical imbalance is still there because you're making yourself do it. You haven't been able to feel that joy from, I know that was one of your questions, Vin, where it's like, you know, like you're doing that. Like wouldn't you, like, why would you stop doing those things if the satisfaction was there? Because the satisfaction isn't there anymore. So you're forcing yourself to do it, but you're going to start to get it back. It's just going to be slower. You know, you're going to start to feel the way you did. That's why like former athletes go through it in retirement.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
They go through it. Because again, loss of identity, right? Loss of purpose. It's just, you got to give it time. You got to be disciplined with it. But above all, you got to really believe it. So it's one thing to say like, fine, I'll go to the gym, but you go and you just drag ass for like an hour and you're better off just like walking to the grocery store because you didn't get a real workout. No, go there, do it. Now, it should be stated that, again, we always go to this on this podcast about the idea of a tribe. You know what? You always get your best workouts when you drag another person with you because they don't want to look like like a wimp in front of you. You don't want to look like a wimp. You're gonna push each other. You're gonna be like, or you're gonna be thinking, you know what, man, that fear of failing on the weights is gone because now you have a spotter. You know, like, man, if you got a good spotter, you're gonna bench. You're gonna be like, F it, put that extra plate on. I'm gonna do it. You know, but it's that edge that you need. It's that peace of mind that's gonna help you get to that next level because you got the support and you got that fearlessness now. There's no more dread. Like, oh, what if that bar collapses on me? No, your buddy ain't gonna let that happen. Not gonna let that happen. You know, they're gonna spot you and they're gonna motivate you. And so you got to give it time. And personal trainers know this. I think personal trainers know this. They know that you got to give the guy time and you got to make him see that there's a benefit to going because it's easy just to cancel. You know, like especially if you have money, you're like, who cares? I'll just cancel. I'll pay the hourly rate, whatever. But you got to feel like it's worth it. And so that's what I would say to people who are like wondering about the physiological effects and how maybe it takes a while for them to really get out of that funk.
Right. Now, leading into that, talk about a tribe you mentioned. We had a bunch of questions on this too. And the question was, a lot of these folks, I'm reading them now. So a lot of these folks said, if they don't have a tribe yet, or and so it's like, how can they go about with finding a tribe or building a tribe? Because some of these folks said they're really lonely, or with the people around already, there's lack of support. I want to say fuck those people, but back to the question, which is, if they don't have a tribe yet, or they don't think they have a tribe, how can they go about with building a tribe, or like, how does one, build it or get a tribe? Like, how does one do that?
So I think actually this is a question we can all answer, but from my standpoint, let's say I'm going to go from the standpoint of someone who's got like major depressive disorder. First things first, think about the people in your own life that you've been able to rely on. But let's say what you're saying, like they don't have anybody. Ask your therapist to recommend support groups that they can go to meet similarly minded people, because nobody that goes to those groups like makes it a goal to stay depressed. Maybe they're not making as much progress as others would want them to make, but they're trying their best. And making fun of them and mocking their progress isn't going to help them. But if they're surrounded by someone who's going through a similar struggles in life, but they're there for each other, then you might have a strong friendship in the making right there. So that's one thing. The other is, and this is maybe next level stuff, is go out, meet people the same way we all met each other. You know what I mean? But they have to be mindful of two things. One, is this person worthy of my friendship, companionship, whatever? And two, they have to be honest about themselves. Am I worthy of theirs? Like, you have to ask yourself, how much of the way I'm perceived is my depression and how much of it is just me being an asshole? Okay. Because they're not the same thing. I mean, sometimes in life I meet people who they're otherwise like healthy, sound mind and body, but like they're just insufferable. They have like a negative mindset that has nothing to do with a diagnosis. They're just, I just don't want to be
those negative people, man. They can go fuck themselves.
I don't want to
Seriously.
be like my fear. One of my biggest fears is to be stuck in an elevator with them, and it's
don't
like,
you hate that though? They're just people that are just, no matter what, they're just suffocating. They're just negative,
yes.
or they're just like,
just make sure you're not one of those people,
right? Or like this, or like you're already going through stuff, and they know it, or you're in a good mood, but then all of a sudden bring some depressing shit. Like, what the fuck? There's a time and place for that, man. Like, come on, like, chill the hell out. Like those are the people that are just terrible. But I'm sure Willie have thoughts of. But for me, I agree with you, Brian. It's, go out and do something. Like, Google is a great thing, or social media. Like, there's so many groups around, right? Or you can go pick up basketball. You don't have to be the best player. Just go play pickup basketball. You can create friends there. I made friends through pickup basketball. Hell, another business partner of mine we met through on the basketball court. There's other sports you can do, or there's, to go to a sporting event or whatever. I don't know. Like, there's so many things out there that you can go through. There's networking events for job, like your job, right? There's networking events. There's so many business groups out there that are literally specific to building a network, and so doing all that kind of stuff I think really helps too.
I think you do bring up some good points. I think in terms of guys, it's usually better if you meet someone doing something physical. Like Vin, how did we meet? We met on the run.
Yeah.
Oh, what was the first thing that I said to you? I'm gonna put you on your fucking ass.
And I was like, who the
And
fuck
I
is this?
proceeded to not do that, and I proceeded to get nowhere near doing that. But the point is, like, one thing I've noticed, because like if people are like me, like I as a general rule really detest people, and I really hate forced small talk. I think it's inconsequential, and it's just an insulting waste of time.
Hey, so
But
how's the
what
weather?
Yeah, he'll pull your head out of your ass, and you'll see for yourself. But then I know you say that, then you're the asshole, right?
Yep.
But no, I mean the whole point is, things like this, you never know who's going to have what role in your life, but you do know that if you don't get out and do something, you're never going to meet them. But I find things like, well, if you have a craft that you want to learn, okay, yeah, all the stupid jokes about Patrick Swayze doing the most erotic pottery ever in the movie Ghost notwithstanding,
Yep.
if go out and do something like that, but don't do it with the intent of, I gotta meet my tribe at the welding class. Like, no,
Yeah.
you go do it because you want to. And if you happen to meet someone that ends up going to a friendship or whatever, great. But even if not, which, like Brian said, you got to make sure that they're actually worth your time. Simple fact is, most people won't be. Like, you can't be discouraged. Like, okay, this person's a sack of shit. Well, most people are sacks of shit. That's why you're trying to be exceptional. So
Yeah.
move on. But at least if you're doing something that you have a genuine interest in, if it's a cooking class, hey, I speak
Wine
from
tasting. Yeah.
a lot of women love a guy that can cook. All right, like, let's just take that as it is.
That is fact.
Carpentry. Well, guess what? Well, what is one of Brian's other rules? Fix shit.
Mhm.
If you are taking classes in that, you're learning skills that are valuable. And the point is, you're building yourself, and you're doing something that you have a genuine interest in. That is only going to make you more attractive. Translate that as you will, toward people who are worthwhile. I mean, if nothing else, they'll probably ask you for help. And honestly, there are a few things in life that feel better than, being useful towards someone else. But I mean, the point is, you have to do these things honestly. It's like, I'm doing this for me. If I happen to meet someone who is a good friend and a good brother out of it, great. But this ain't meetup. All right, this is me working on me first. And I know when I work on me first, other things will fall into place.
Yeah. And again, something I said before, patience, right? I mean, you're not going to meet your tribe or have your tribe overnight. A tribe is built over time, and it takes time to vet them and all that. But just don't lose hope, don't lose faith. Just continue to get out there, and at the very least, you'll have some friends, and that's a start. And just don't fall victim into these chatbots or other things either. By the way, please don't do that. Be careful. Now, one more question. So I'm doing three today because we were rooting through the most popular one. So those two are the most popular. The third one, I will bite my tongue because I do not judge people, but I think people listening so far already know that I am, a little judgmental at times, but at least I'm self-aware of that. Is there a link, Brian, to sexual issues, including erectile dysfunction, with mental health issues? In particular, from the last episode, depression. I don't know the damn answer, but can your dick not get hard? I guess.
Yes.
If you're depressed.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not making fun of anyone. I'm just, it's just me. I'm just
delicately.
Yeah,
It's like modern poetry we're hearing here.
So the short answer, yes. Because I remember
okay.
in the previous episode, I did mention like one of the things, for example, that actually this might still be the case. Someone could correct me, but if you literally Google like men's therapy, it's not my practice that pops up. It'll be like a testosterone replacement therapy clinics. And listen, it is a real thing, but we're talking about two different things because one can come with age. Because the reality is, I know there's studies to measure this kind of thing, but like the testosterone of like the baby boomers and all that is way higher on average than today for most men today. Because you think about the average person now, I'm not counting outliers like athletes, military, things like that. I'm not counting that. I'm counting like just the average 9 to 5 Joe Schmo, right? Like shitty diet, no exercise, um, chemicals in our food, things like that, plastics. I mean, there are people who even say like freaking Wi-Fi signals and Bluetooth affects
That's a
testosterone.
bit much. Okay.
I don't know the science behind it. People saying all these weird things, but if even a fraction of this is true, then those are things that are barriers to men's health, like not mental health, but like physical well-being and stuff. Now that being said, if it stands to reason that those things affect your testosterone, and testosterone, as I said in the last episode, was one of those things that can affect mental health in men because it's our libido, and let's just be honest, who are we if we're not somewhat sexually active in our life? You don't
Grandma
hear about
with drawers on.
Mm-hmm.
well, sometimes the draws come off and the lanolin comes out,
Oh, right.
Oh, hey,
Hey,
oh,
oh.
hey.
but hey, you know what? But it's like I said, hey, more power to you. If you do that and instead of putting a gun to your head, then I'm all for it. That or the sex bots. But to your point though, no, it can have an effect, and that's why, like I said earlier,
Hmm.
rule certain things out. Like, it's okay to see a therapist for maybe if you're making a connection, but any therapist worth their salt would refer you to a doctor, or at least tell you to go to your medical provider and just get your get your testosterone tested. I mean, I would recommend that for anybody that's in their mid 30s, late 30s, maybe have it checked out because you got to see where you're at against the curve, so to speak. And if TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, hormone therapy is recommended and your insurance covers it, for example, try it out. I don't know. I mean, ask your doctor if it's good because they got to check your heart and things like that. But ask. It's like with any medication, like I said earlier, get the right information. Decide if it's right for you. But you might go get tested, and they might say like, "No, you're good. Like your test is where it should be," and so there's no effect on it. And if that's the case, and you're having performance issues, you got to ask yourself then, what is it with you and what is it with your partner then? Because that's why there are subdivisions in therapy for like sex therapy and things like that. Because it's like, how do you say, like, not everybody is good in the sack. Some women, for example, if they're not good at pleasuring
Starfish.
their men, I mean, give it a
Don't talk
name.
about yourself like that, man.
Huh?
Oh man.
Like that. Don't talk about yourself like that.
But sometimes it's like a lot of different factors, whether their actual bedroom performance is bad or maybe they make their man feel like garbage. You see,
Right.
there's that anxiety. That's how they call it performance anxiety. If you're with a partner that's just a ball buster and they're not like making it a positive experience, I mean, it is what it is, man. Then maybe
Yeah.
that's the problem. Maybe they should be, or maybe like sometimes couples who've been together for a really, really long time, but they're really bad at communication. You know what? Sometimes it's okay to just take a step back and one, evaluate, well, what are we not doing that we used to? And if it turns out that no, we're doing the same thing, well, maybe people's tastes evolve over time. And maybe one of them or maybe both of them are like, we should do more. Now, I'm not saying it's always going to end up like Chuck Rhodes in Billions, where the wife's got to.
Like Chuck Rhodes and Billions.
People got their own kicks, man. How they get off. It is what it is. But if you're going to be with a partner, and you guys have good communication, then you got to speak about that. You got to say, "Hey, let's try this," right? Because I mean, listen, it could save your marriage. Listen, bad sex can ruin a marriage. Okay, so imagine what great sex does, especially over time. Because look, women complain a lot about men who kind of lose that spark, right? Like they're like, he used to take me out to do this, he doesn't do that anymore, blah blah blah. And a lot of that's probably true, if we're being honest. But what I don't hear is them following it up by saying, but you know what? I could do more of this, that, and the other that I used to as well. I don't hear a lot of accountability on that part, on that end.
Yeah.
But, so there are things men could do. And one of the things I think men could do better is listen to when a woman says, this would make me feel good or whatnot. They know their body. Listen to them. But then guys, sometimes maybe we're too quiet. We don't say what we really, really want. Not everyone is like that alpha male that could just take what they want, and just say, this is what I want. We all can't be Razor Ramon, we can't be a man amongst boys. And so
Yeah.
I would say communication helps, but first, rule out whether it's a medical issue first. And don't be afraid. Don't be scared to talk about it. Historically, what it is the problem goes untreated because men are too scared to have that conversation with a doctor. That's why those ads you see on social media for like those like Viagra, Cialis,
the Hims is a big thing now, yeah.
Because you don't need a prescription for those. You used to, but now you don't. But or you do a consultation. I think that's what the fine print says.
Listen, y'all. Listen, you need any of that. All you need is oysters.
Oysters?
Trust me, like oysters, they have something in it, or like maca root. I tell you what, I eat oysters, and I can't stop fucking for like 3-4 days straight. I'm telling you right now. I found what it is. You can Google it. It's something with oysters. I never knew it, but like after you eat oysters, like you have like a good dozen or two. Oh boy, you can go for.
I thought you were just gonna say, well, you can always buy a convertible and run off with your aerobics instructor.
Well, I was just gonna say, Willie, if we ever live in some twisted future where Vin here decides, you know what, I'm gonna go for the sex bots, we better make sure he gets one from Hyundai that gives the 100,000-mile warranty, because he's gonna go through that in like 5 months tops.
Yeah. No, but I mean, Brian, you're right though. I mean, I just Googled it, right? Oysters is a
aphrodisiac.
Yeah, they're the nutrients. And earlier you talked about diet. I know we're going off the rails about anxiety, but this is a good conversation.
Not being able to perform is an anxiety trigger for a lot of guys.
Yeah, that's true. But you said diet, right, is a big part. A bunch of Americans are fat, lazy, and eat like shit. But but if you're healthy and eat well, I mean, look, here are the top foods that are great for males when it comes to sex, right? Sperm count, perform, all that kind of stuff. Beef, liver, salmon, oysters, tuna, beef, pork, Brazil nuts, berries. So like what I'm hearing here is eating real whole foods. I'm big on that. I know I've always been an advocate for that. Like eat real food, whole foods like meat, veggies, fruit and all that kind of stuff. Oysters now, of course. But it just sounds like you eat good food. You're going to give your body a chance. And that's why, I always joke, I can go for fucking 3-4 days in a row if I have oysters, but oysters and beef together, good night.
Can I just say though, I know you said salmon, but I'm going to go out on a limb and specify Pacific salmon, not that Atlantic farm raised, man-made stuff.
Yeah, the only time you do salmon that's farm raised is organic from Norway. In particular, Norway. The reason is because their farm raised technically is not really farm raised. It's actually out in the ocean. They just have really great technology to control it and manage it, so that the salmon is pretty much wild.
It's just something about Yeah, something about the Atlantic salmon, about how like they have the pink coloring because of the food color.
Yep.
That just rubs me the wrong way. Plus, I'm a
Well,
little spoiled, man.
Yeah.
I lived in Seattle where everything's Pacific salmon, so
Yeah.
it's just really good.
I mean, in general, you should be eating, wild fish,
Yeah.
Organic grass-fed meats.
But not necessarily
So,
not necessarily wild women, unless that's what you're into.
I mean, look, if you're
Raging the
not,
head crazy in the bed.
I mean,
Get the penicillin.
you never know.
Oh,
So,
Jesus Christ.
so for men out there, for the guys that asked that question, and the end of the day, it's what we just said, right? We try to rule out medical conditions, but it could be a lot of lifestyle issues and just communication, like Brian said, and all that. So depression does play a role, but let's rule out some other things. And trust me, have a nice steak dinner, but appetizers, making some oysters. I'm telling you, you're going to be rolling.
Yeah, skip the awesome blossom, the bloomin' onion, whatever they call
No,
it. Listen, I understand that like it takes a whole lot of discipline to be able to like just turn your life around and make better decisions for your mind, body, and your life. But one of the better psychological tricks I've noticed in the last like few decades is, you guys know that there's those publications where it says like, eat this, not that. You guys know that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Real simple. It's just pictures and it just shows like caloric breakdown. And yeah, sometimes the alternatives aren't great, but they're reasonable. Like they'll do the ones where it's like, instead of a quarter pounder of cheese, eat like one of the chicken sandwiches, but don't add like certain condiments on whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Is it better than a quarter pounder in terms of health and all that? Yes. Is it overall super healthy? No, but it's better than, it's an alternative. And I think that helps Americans more than just saying, well, you should be eating algae and kelp and quinoa and all that. People are going to be like, that tastes like shit.
First off, they don't taste like shit. I enjoy mixing with my rice, but anyways, okay.
But like, but you know what I mean? It's a big step for someone who went from KFC to just something like that. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes there are certain places, like we all love kava, right? For example, you take anybody, I know, right? You take anybody from like anywhere to like from the junkiest food, but you take them to like a kava, they'll probably be like, oh man, this shit's really good. It's just that they're not used to it. That's all. So every now and then you have good foods, and or like this is something that frustrates me to no end. By the way, like people think vegan is gonna be good for you. But this is what irritates the hell out of me. People want to go with the latest and greatest, the Impossible, the Beyond, all this stuff, when in reality,
far worse for you.
Asians who grew up like Buddhists know that like every year, the Lunar Festival, you go to the temple and they have like all the food is vegan because the monks don't freaking eat meat. Dude, that shit is actually good, right? That shit's actually good, but it's been around since forever, right? Or like Indian places. Indian food that's vegan actually tastes really good. But it's nothing special. Like they don't do some crazy formulation. It isn't some synthetic
but the
binders.
key difference is like if you do vegan, it's like real foods, because the problem like Beyond Meat and Impossible Meat, it's so much garbage in it, and actually it's worse for you.
And some of it's like high, it's like high sodium.
So processed, just eat real food, and also 80-20 balance. I tell people 80-20. You do really good 80% of the time, and then 20% of the time you treat yourself. I mean, if you do 80-20, it's gonna be good.
You brought this up a long time ago when we were just having a conversation about like we're talking about like health trends, where you brought up bone broth. Remember what you told me? Like we Vietnamese people have been doing that forever, but it's just that now the audience is like, oh, this is really good. They pay a premium for that versus like beef bouillon and all that. But our people have been doing it forever. It's just it was never linked with the health supplement field and all that. So collagen. We used to get that with tendon and all that. We just didn't codify it. We didn't give it a name.
And by the way, all that is great for men's fertility, by the way, apparently. So get your fixings of bone marrow and beef and all that.
It doesn't hurt that it's also delicious.
And it's delicious.
Right? That helps.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But those are the three main questions that we got from the last episode. There's some other ones, but there's whatever. But
there's an overlap, right? So it's okay.
Yeah. There's a lot overlapping, but we really appreciate the questions everyone has been sending. Continue to send them. We'll obviously bundle it all up and try to address it head on. as we just did right now. We hope you enjoyed this episode where we talk about anxiety. I think that's something that is a problem, but people take control. There'll be many more episodes coming up because we continue to do well. This is our 4th episode. So we're already seeing great traction. We appreciate the love and continue to tune in and spread the word. Any last words from you guys?
I just definitely like what you said, man. I just want to thank people for sending in questions. I'm glad that more people are listening, and hopefully they're seeing the importance of men's mental health. And because we primarily cover that, we want good mental health for everybody, but our main focus is definitely men's mental health in this country because it's underrepresented, I think. And and thank you for the support, the interest, and we appreciate the future support as well.
Absolutely. I think, Vin, you hit it right on the head when you say you got to be patient. Good things take time. Rome was neither built nor destroyed in a day, so habits go both ways. And I just want to harp on the making your bed thing. I'm a big believer in the 1% improvement, right? You do 1% for long enough, you look back, oh my God. There's actually a book by Admiral McRaven called Make Your Bed. For those who are not familiar, he is a genuine badass Navy SEAL, SOCOM commander. Like, he gave a big speech at I think University of Texas about the power of small daily habits. So people say it's bullshit. Okay, well here's a literal American hero and all around badass supporting the 1%, but the 1% improvement philosophy. But hey, who knows? Maybe the keyboard warrior in the basement knows a little more than a decorated hero. But no, you just got to be patient and got to keep at it. It's one thing that I know I've joked about a lot with me when Vin, you dragged my sorry ass back to the gym a few years ago. It's like, well, it took years of stupid decisions to get here. Why wouldn't it take years of good decisions to get out of it?
Yep.
So unfortunately, patience goes both ways, and I think people are very determined and diligent in the wrong ways sometimes, and that's how they get into these unfortunate corners that they sometimes find themselves in. But if you got into it, you can get out of it. So have some faith.
For sure. And look forward to future episodes as well. Ask questions. Where our formatting, I think, will continue to evolve. As you know, we're a new podcast, so we just love the support and bear with us. And any ideas you have on the structure of our podcast and what you want to address, let us know. Cheers.